It's all good.
It's not my fault, Danny. It's not my fault. Danny's still blaming me for the fruit flies in the basement. And with that comment being said, we'd like to welcome you to this early special edition of the Live Well tonight here at 7 p.m. here in the Fish North Georgia studios. We got a fantastic episode, as always, planned for you guys. Danny's killing fruit flies. We're going to keep a drink count on how many he kills all episode tonight. So every time he swats at one, take a drink. Whether it's water, Coca-Cola, beverage, whatever you want it to be. So, but we got Trent Palmer here tonight. Some of you guys may know him, local guys, probably some national guys. Y'all know him. He's a winner of the NPFL this season. He also owns Sonar Pros in Dawsonville, Georgia. Do a fantastic job with sonar installations and workups. So we got him in here, and we're going to talk electronics. We're going to talk a little bit of tournament fishing. And whatever kind of else comes up. 8 o'clock, the Braves start. So pop the score in, as always, when it comes in. So as we get started, though, as always, we want to shout out our sponsors. Charlie Adams is Adams Renovations. Contact Charlie Adams for any of your renovation needs, whatever it be, new, remodel, whatever. Need a back deck, need a porch screened in, need a new fence, whatever it may be. Charlie Adams is your guy. Give him a call at 470-505-3412 or email him at adamsrenovations20@gmail.com. And we would like to welcome one of our newest sponsors, Sonar Pros. Sonar Pros is the official sonar installer of the Live Well. Give them a call at 770-530-4505. Trent and the guys here, we're happy to have them on board as a sponsor of the Live Well, the official electronics installer of the Live Well. So hit them up for anything and everything that you could possibly need on your boat. Doesn't matter. Electronics wise, these guys are the best. They do a really fantastic job. I highly suggest you call them and book up an appointment if you want to get in line and you want to get your sonar set up just right. So Sonar Pros with Trent Palmer. We appreciate them coming on board. And of course, Festive Water Paddle Sports, your North Georgia paddle sports shop right by Lake Lanier. Call Nathan, call Tim, right over there, right off of 400 and 369, right there on the shores of Lake Lanier. Kayaks, kayak rigging, kayak rentals, whatever it may be. Hit them up. They'll help you guys out. Mention that Fish North Georgia sent you, and they'll definitely hook you up. So we appreciate them as always. And without further ado, Danny Pruitt, take it away, my man.
All right, take a deep breath out there. You've been talking for quite a while right there.
Hush.
Anyway, you guys, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Yeah, we did start a little bit earlier tonight, of course, with the ball game, and also we got a very busy man in the house trying to help him get back home because he's got a lot on his schedule. But again, thank you guys for watching the Live Well here at Fish North Georgia. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube tonight or tomorrow, make sure you give that thumbs up. Number one, that helps us out. Hit that like and subscribe button, and follow us on all the rest of our social media, the TikTok, Instagram, of course, Fish North Georgia group page on Facebook, and whatever else we might throw it out there on. You guys make sure you join us on that. Also, tonight, hey, listen, if you got some comments and questions, especially when it comes to sonar and stuff like that, hey, put it in there. We're going to get Trent right here to answer that. And I want to go ahead and give a disclaimer out to you guys because, of course, Trent does fish the National Professional Fishing League. And in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, two weeks, he has a tournament on Lake Lanier. So we have to make sure that we keep this within the boundaries of the rules as far as information given. You guys can talk all you want in the comment section, but we have to keep that in mind. We want to make sure we don't get him in trouble. I don't want to be the reason that he doesn't win another $100,000 check. So with that, we're gonna get started. Also, one other thing too before I get started, I want to make sure you guys remember the Toys for Tots tournament at the Big Shanty Bassmasters are putting on November 4th on Lake Allatoona. Currently scheduled to go out of Victoria, but as we talked last week, depending on the water level, that could get moved to the blockhouse. I talked to Ron today. They're monitoring that. There is a possibility that the fishing tournament itself, these bugs are killing me, will be going to the blockhouse, but the Jeep run and the motorcycle rally will still be at Victoria if that situation arises. Also, too, he brought us a box up here for the shop. If you've got a toy, okay, an unwrapped toy you want to give to this cause for the next 2 weeks here at the shop at Fish North Georgia, bring it by, drop it off. All the toys and all the proceeds this year go to Pickens County.
Danny,
What?
make sure, for some reason they're saying your mic isn't working, and I'm not sure why.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
It's working. Hold on 1 second. Let's double check this real fast.
Good.
Hit it, Danny.
Did we get somebody super on?
Hit it, Danny.
1 2 1 2 1 2. Should
On
work.
my end, it's working. I'm
So-
seeing you talk. Say something else right now.
Ryan let all these flies in the shop.
It is working. I do not know. I don't know what the deal is. You guys make sure.
How about this?
Give
Hey, give me move the. Tell me if they hear this. How about this, Mike? Is that any better? Where's Paul?
It's still not working.
All right,
What'd you do to it the other day?
I didn't do nothing. So here, what's
You
this?
done something to it the other day.
Flip that camera around. How about this? Does this work better?
How about that one?
Oh my goodness.
No,
Danny
is not working. Can you
say
got?
something, Trent?
You guys got me?
You got Trent?
Check 1 2.
It's working on y'all's side. Hey, well, there you go. So, all right, anyway, in true Fish North Georgia fashion, when we screw something up, we just roll with it, baby. So that's what we're doing tonight. And no, so I don't know. It might be on your guys. So there's like 4 guys say no, but we got guys down here in the.
You guys picking it up?
Can they not? Can they not? Here we go. Reset it. All right, let me reset.
Hold on a second.
this. All right, now go.
How about now? Is it working now? 1 2 1 2 1 2. Good Lord, we might have some
How
like,
does it
really
sound
important
now?
people.
All I did was reset it. Somebody say something quick.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Somebody hear me?
Check 1 2 3.
Better.
Okay.
But you guys back
You
in the
can
back
hear
hear me
me?
just fine.
Yeah, they're saying
There.
that.
Okay. There it is. All right. Well, that's weird.
Listen, you know
That's
what?
weird. All I did was reset Black
Now
Magic.
you're
I
loud
turned it
and
off
clear.
of audio
Well,
and
hey,
turned it back
listen,
on,
guys,
and it
so-
started working. Amazing, right?
We're like the Braves bats right now.
Okay.
Hopefully, we'll wake the hell up.
Sorry
So,
about that. Little minor
Anyway.
hiccup. Go ahead.
Anyway, now I'm going to start my whole spiel again. You guys know about social media. Follow us on all that. But the Toys for Tots Big Shanty Tournament, okay? November 4th, Victoria Landing on Lake Allatoona. Guys, it's a very big cause right there. Guys are raising money and collecting toys for the kids of Pickens County. And they're also doing a Jeep run and a motorcycle run. Right now, the water level's dropping on Lake Allatoona. There's a possibility that it might have to move over to the blockhouse. But I was told today, if that happens, only the fishing tournament's going to the blockhouse. They'll still do the Jeep run and the motorcycle run at Victoria Landing. And we also have a Toys for Tot box. We're going to be collecting toys for the next 2 weeks here at the shop. Guys, you don't have to come into the store and buy anything, although we'd love you to do that. But if you're in the area and you got a toy and you want to help these kids out, just bring the toy by, come upstairs, sit and talk. We can talk fishing and everything. And also, just to make sure you guys heard it, my guest tonight, Trent Palmer, is also fishing in the National Professional Fishing League. And in 2 weeks, they got a tournament on Lake Lanier. So we have to make sure that we keep within the boundaries of information, the rules. We don't want to get him in trouble. I'm not going to be the reason that he doesn't get to keep that $100,000 check he's going to win here in a couple of weeks. That he's going to win here in a couple of weeks. Listen, hey, you guys can comment all you want in the comment section. If you make a comment and we don't answer, it might just be that situation right there. So without ado, now that we got the mics working, Mr. Palmer, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you guys having me over here.
Well, we appreciate you coming. Let's get the talk started tonight. I know we're gonna have a lot of questions in the comments about the about sonars, stuff like that. He's definitely gonna answer it. But I want to start off a little bit about the National Professional Fishing League,
Definitely.
because how long have you been doing that now?
This is my second year.
Second year.
Yep.
You've had some success this year.
Yes.
Cashed a check.
Yeah, we got the big check this year.
Got the big check.
Got
What lake was that on?
that was on Saginaw Bay.
Saginaw Bay.
Which last year we went to as well. Relatively close to the same time. Obviously, weather is always a dictating factor up there on the north end. For those who don't know, Saginaw Bay is in Michigan. It's actually a large bay off of Lake Erie. I shouldn't really use the term bay because the bay itself is bigger than Okeechobee.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and it's a large place. But yeah, last year that same tournament, I got second by 4 ounces, and then this year turned around and won the tournament by 2 ounces.
by 2 ounces.
Yeah, I beat my roommate out,
Who's your roommate?
Patrick Walters,
Patrick Walters by 2 ounces.
by 2 ounces, and he had to bring me in.
That was what I was getting ready to say. What
Yeah.
was that conversation like?
So I'll try to make a really long story as short as I can because I've.
Oh, take your time, baby.
It, So long story short, last day of practice, I was running in, and I run a 921 Phoenix. It's a 2023, so it's a relatively newer boat. And I was running in and got put in Guardian mode for low oil pressure. And I was like, man, that's weird.
Right.
Well, it was literally my run in for last day of practice. Well, great thing about the NPFL is we have an off day, which is like the best thing ever. That's like my favorite part of the NPFL is that off day because number one, you can sleep in a little bit.
Yeah.
Number two, you can rig tackle. Number three, and this like the situation I had, I could run around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get this boat taken care of.
Right.
Well, again, long story short, around that time period, Mercury made a change from a lighter weight oil to a heavier weight oil. Because if you've ever seen guys run the 4-stroke Mercs, if you leave them trimmed down for a period of time and crank up, you'll get a puff of smoke. And what that is oil seeps past the rings in the combustion chamber and it burns it. So Mercury went to a heavier weight oil to try to stop that. So I was like, maybe something happened with the oil, oil. So first thing I did that on the off day is I went and got new oil to do an oil change, pulled the drain and fuel poured out.
Oh my goodness.
I said,
that's not good.
That's not good. And I knew immediately what that was, which was the engine's making oil, fuel's getting past essentially the piston rings and mixing with the oil.
Right.
So long story short, when we go to a lake, NPFL works with a local dealership or Mercury shop, Yamaha shop, whatever, to kind of be our service provider because we don't have service trailers. And for the most part, most of them can help out in a situation with a power head, which is ultimately what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty hard to do in a day. So I went to a local shop and actually I went to like 6 and none of them wanted to help me. And then one guy was like, hey man, I'll do a health check on the engine. So pulled compression. It had good compression. So I was like, that at least gives me the confidence to run in the tournament. So ultimately what I ended up doing, and again, this is, like I said, I'm trying to make a long story short. What we figured out was if I ran heavyweight Verado oil, that would help limit how much oil is getting past the rings and mixing with the actual, or how much fuel is getting past the rings mixing with the oil. So every single day of the tournament, I had to run about 30 miles an hour. It's the fastest I could run. If I went like 35, if I went into pretty much the 4,000 RPM range on my Lowrance, my oil pressure would go like 90, 10, 0, 0, 10, 0,
Oh, good
and then
Lord.
put me in Guardian mode and shut me down.
Right.
But if I held it like 3,500 RPMs or so, it would stay somewhat happy.
Right.
Anyways, day 1, day 2 dealt with that. Day 3 made my run out, and I could tell the engine was on its last, like absolute last breath. So I ran the 62 miles out in my first spot.
62 miles.
Yep. Shut down.
Lord.
Caught most of my weight pretty early. I think I don't remember what I had that last day, 22 and almost 23 pounds of smallmouth, and made one last little run. And I could really tell now, like I could visibly see smoke pouring out of the back of the engine. It sounded god awful. So called our tournament director. Patrick and I had even talked every day. I was like, hey dude, it's getting worse. Like he and I were fishing the same areas because we work together and kind of break down water together. And we were in the same relative area to each other. And I was like, we actually ran into each other. It's pretty funny. It's on live. If anyone knows Patrick Walters, he is notorious for lying on the water.
Is he? Oh, one of those.
He's bad.
Sandbagger, and a liar, and all
bad.
that. Okay.
Yeah. Day 2, he pulled up. He and I were at the idle zone together. It's like, you got him? He's like, I got 17, and he had 22 or 21
dude.
3/4. He's one of those. So
Man.
he and I pulled up to each other, and I told myself all day, day 3, that bastard lied to me the day before, and I'm lying to him today.
Yeah.
So he pulled up on me, and he's like, you got him? I was like, no, I got like 15 pounds. And I cracked a smirk because I'm a horrible liar, and he knew
you
I
had
was
it.
lying. Well, when we crossed paths, then I told him, I said, hey, dude, it's hurting bad. If you
Right.
see a phone call from me, it let go. So got ready to leave because I had a long run in. I literally got on plane like a mile, and then power head let go. I mean, it died. And I'm still 60-something miles away from takeoff. So I call him, and funny enough, when I got off plane, I hit a no-cell area. So I'm sitting there. I got the engine to crank. It was actually sitting at dead 0 PSI for oil pressure, so it would not get back on plane. And out of nowhere, it hit like 5 PSI, just floored it, and it like for sure died then. And then I floated to a cell phone area, and I got a hold of Patrick. he cut his day about 20 minutes short, came in, got me. We bagged our fish up, and I bagged my fish up, put him in his boat. The 2 camera guys we had, because there's a live production show for NPFL, we put them in my boat, and I trolling motored it to the bank, and then we ran in together, first and second place, and then I beat him by 2 ounces.
Now listen, that's a hell of a story right there. So now let me ask you this: what's going through your mind during all this? I mean, I know you're lying to your friend and all that's all good, sportsmanship.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind? Like,
but during the whole bagging stuff, we knew we were kind of running out of time, so we were just focused on let's make sure we both get in, right? Yeah. And we had a storm coming in. That place is not forgiving. I mean,
we're getting ready to talk about that.
It gets sporty up there. It's probably the best way to put it. And the interesting place about there is a 40-minute idle we have to do because you can't run the river. And where we were running way in was actually like in the inner city where the river goes in. So we had a 40-minute idle. So when we got to the idle zone, we really didn't look at each other's fish. I didn't want to look at his. And I was like, do you got him? He's like, I'll be honest, I maybe have 20 pounds. He's like, what about you? I was like, last time I weighed him, I had like 22 and a half. I've made a cull since then, so maybe I have 23. And he was like, all right, it's going to be close. We never looked at each other's fish. When he bagged them in for weigh-in, never looked at them. But when we were bagging fishing for weigh-in and we were the last 2 to go, I was freaking out. I mean, because like I said, the year before I got second by 4 ounces. Right. That was a pretty good gut punch.
What's the difference between first and second as far as payouts?
$80,000.
So it's a difference between $100,000 check and a $20,000 check.
Yeah. It's a pretty drastic difference.
Dude, I can't imagine what's
like last year first place was 50 and then second was 20. 30 grand still a lot of money, but it ain't 80 grand. It's a little bit different of a separation.
Oh, good Lord. We get all worked up for like, I don't know, $500 pot tournament up here.
Yeah.
$80,000. So basically there's $120,000 going to get split between this boat coming in right there.
Yes.
How far back was third place in that?
Funny enough, it was our other roommate, Mike Corbishley. We finished first, second, third in the house, and I beat third place by 10 pounds.
Okay, so you knew it was one of you two.
Yes.
You knew it was one of you.
Yeah, there was no way anyone was catching up to us.
Talking about the tension and the drama on that boat, especially the idling.
Yeah.
Just sitting there like,
Just thinking he and I are Little Wayne fans, so we listened to some old Little Wayne jamming in.
Oh,
the terms.
I understand that. You talked about it being on Lake Erie, but it's in Michigan. I just spent 2 weeks on Lake Michigan.
Yep.
Is Erie as clear as Lake Michigan?
Yeah. It depends. So last year when we hit it, there was a big algae bloom. So it was clear, but had a fog to it per se in certain areas where the wind blew. If that algae bloom would move in.
Right.
This year, there's areas it looks like the Caribbean. It's like blue. It's crazy looking. It doesn't even look natural.
I can't explain to anybody how clear the water was where I was at. We was over in Glen Arbor, and it was just like, you think you're getting ready to run aground and you're in 20 feet because you see the rocks.
Yeah, 100%.
And do you know Rob Robleski?
Yeah, he fished with us last year.
Okay, yeah. So he was actually up here at the shop yesterday.
Yep.
And he had just spent some time up there, and he was telling me, and we were comparing notes about how clear the water was.
Yep.
Everybody thinks around here Lake Lanier or Lake Burton's clear.
It's a different clear up there.
There.
You can be literally idling up there and be like, oh my God, I'm about to hit this boulder.
Yeah.
You're in 20 foot of water. It's crazy.
All right. So Facebook user Corbishley, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, that's the third roommate. That's Mike
Corbishley.
Corbishley.
So Mike Corbishley. Hey, appreciate you watching tonight, buddy. But I like that. He is here to fact check the stories. So I love that.
Yeah.
But okay, so how about this? A lot of guys that watch us are never going to understand what holding up a $100,000 check is like.
Yeah.
Explain the emotion when you figured out, hey, it's mine.
Yeah. I'm not a very emotional guy for the most part.
Right.
You watch the weigh and you'll see I had to pause for a minute because I was getting choked up for a second because there's a lot of work that goes into tournament fishing, as all of us know. And like I said, the year before, getting second by 4 ounces, in that tournament, I know for a fact, essentially what happened last year was day 2, I physically could not make it out to my smallmouth. Like, could not make it. I had to go fish the bank and catch largemouth, and it hurt it essentially hurt my strategy. And being able to work towards like all year, there's pretty much 2 tournaments I was focused on for this year, and that was Saginaw and Lanier.
Yeah.
And I knew those were probably one of the 2 that I could get it done at. And did a little pre-practice. I normally don't pre-practice events, but Saginaw, I knew I wanted to go up and do a little bit more scouting just from what I learned the year before. So I put, 3-4 days of pre-practice in and just really fine tune things going in that event, and then to see it all come together and beat my roommate by 2 ounces. Who's, if you guys don't know Patrick, he is arguably one of the best anglers in the world right now.
Yeah.
He's fished the Elite Series for 5 years. His average, he just sent me the spreadsheet not too long ago. Across the 5 years he's fished the Elite Series, his average finish is 3rd place. In
Good
5 years
Lord.
fishing the Elite Series. It's actually 3.8 is what it is. And to beat someone like him and to be a buddy and the whole situation went down, I mean, it was a remarkable feeling holding that check up, because it's just like, holy crap, what a week. And I was just, what I failed to mention was every single day of the tournament, when I would get home, I would change the oil. I was changing the oil every single day in the engine,
Trying to keep it
sweating
going.
about the engine. I mean,
Yeah.
it was mentally draining that entire week.
Now, let me ask you this. Could he have actually turned down bringing you back in?
100%.
So that's a pretty cool thing for him.
I
to do that.
owed him big time for that.
Yeah. So that's
Granted, he won the event before that.
Okay, so he
of
won.
ours. So we're tied now.
he wasn't hurt. So Connor Hewitt,
Yep.
and I'll get to all your questions. Again, I'm in a different seat tonight, so I've got to get used to my angles. How much do you actually pocket out of 100,000 about like tackle, gas rods, etc.?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'll be pretty transparent in my situation, because
Yeah.
I don't mind being transparent on it. Everyone has their different situation fishing the NPFL, Elite Series, Bass Pro Tour, whatever. And I work with a lot of the Elite and Bass Pro Tour guys, and everyone has their own sponsorship portfolio. I'll give some rough numbers. Our entry fees are about 32 grand for the year. And then I can actually, Corbishley and I were talking about it today, fishing the distances we travel, lodging, all that stuff. You're going to average about close to 2 grand a tournament in expenses. Right.
Okay.
So just to give you, realistic thought process, you're roughly 32 grand in entries. Then you're about 12 grand, say worst case, 15 grand in expenses, depending on how far you travel. It gives you a good idea where you're at. So I'll make this statement without getting exact numbers. I have enough sponsor support where my entries and expenses and a little more are covered. So for me, that 100 grand is it's pretty much pocketed in my situation, plus the other checks I've cut this year. So now luckily I have really good sponsors that are actually partners through my business too. So they're really good partnerships where not only do I represent the product on the water and use the product, but also we sell the product. So there's like a multi-revenue generating stream there. So to answer your question, in my situation, a good bit of that 100 grand was pocketed just because of the sponsor support I do have in the industry.
Will there be any trash talk between Paul Goad and Trent? Huh?
Who said
Todd
that?
Goad. I don't know. I have to look to see who that
Okay,
is.
yeah. So listen,
Someone knows an inside joke
listen,
there.
If you're watching on Facebook, and I should have said this, but with the mics and all that, and it being an hour earlier than normal, we're struggling, but we're doing the best we can. If you're watching on Facebook, go to www.streamyard.com/Facebook. And if you do that, it will allow you to put your name in there, unless you just want to be, incognito, and you can do that as well. Yeah. But right there, Ryan just put the link down right there. So whoever Paul Goad is, and
that's Todd Goad. So he's leading our Angler of the Year race right now. He's got a top 10 in every single tournament this year.
Very consistent. And
he's got I think a 12-point lead over second in AOI.
Yeah.
And he used to, I'll probably quote it wrong. I think he lived on Lanier for 10 years or so.
Oh, okay.
But that was, he moved out of this area about 10 years ago, but
okay.
he has a pretty good Lanier history. I wouldn't say there'll be trash talk. I mean, Todd and I, we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other, fishing the NPFL.
Oh my, it's Benson.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Benson.
Yeah, he's trying to stir the pot.
Troublemaker.
He's trying to stir the pot.
But
yeah, I wouldn't say there'd be some trash talk, and I would love to see Todd pull it off. He's an outstanding angler, and he's having a heck of a year, and it'd be pretty cool to see him close it out.
So this is how we have one of the bosses here tonight.
Yeah,
we have one of the bosses here tonight. What is it? And I'll get to your question real quick, Connor. What is it about the NPFL that you like?
Being a business owner, I love the schedule first and foremost.
Yeah.
Not from a where we go to perspective, which I've loved where we've gone this year.
Yeah.
But the timing. So for the most part, most tournaments are 6 to 8 weeks separated.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have an off day. So being a business owner, that lets me catch up on the 640 missed phone calls and emails I have.
Oh, I know.
And that's the biggest thing I like. And then two, operationally, I mean, people will be able to see it when we're here. Operationally, I fished a lot of tournaments. I fished Toyotas, Opens, BFLs, you name it. I fished them. There is, and I'm not saying this because Paul's on there. Legitimately, there's no one better that operationally runs a tournament.
Really? That's high praise.
The logistics of how we weigh in, even parking, launching, they freaking do a jam up job. And then two, it gives a platform for guys like myself where I've transparently I've never really wanted to fish for a living. I always wanted to be added revenue for the year type deal. And I knew I could be competitive, and it gave me an opportunity to fish a professional circuit without having to go through fishing the meat grinder, the 9 Opens, or going through the qualification process of the Toyotas and stuff like that. So
the one thing that we really like about the NPFL, and I do not mean this in a negative thing, it's the working man's league.
100%.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
And that's the way I mean it. It's the work, because a lot of these guys, and a lot of people don't realize, they think professional fishing, all this glory that goes on. And I've talked to a number of you guys. It's not easy.
No,
it's not easy. And it's not the glamour life everybody thinks it is as far as the travel. A lot of guys have to, miss work, stay in their trucks, for expenses and all that. Maybe talk a little bit about, how you got into it or what you've seen, guys having to deal with things that the average guy thinks, hey, they just heard you won $100,000 check.
Yeah.
It's not all that.
Yeah. It's like I said earlier, everyone, like I mentioned my situation, everyone has a different situation. And I'm not saying, you have to have all these sponsors to go fish it, because you can be a heck of an angler and cut a check in every tournament, maybe get close to winning one, and you can turn a profit in the thing. Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately sponsors will come. Everyone has their own different situation and how things work out, but it's really cool to see in the NPFL. Not everyone has a wrap boat. Not everyone has a jersey.
Right.
Everyone, for the most part, a lot of them have their own business.
Yep.
And I love talking to guys about their business. So it's really cool to see the different side of the spectrum, because we do have guys that truly fish the NPFL and fish for a living, like Patrick and a few other guys that's all they do is fish. And it's cool to hear their story on how they make that work, because it's different than my story and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I don't watch a lot of professional fishing.
Yeah.
For the most part, a lot of it bores me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I like watching what you guys do.
Yeah.
And it's also nice knowing some of you guys. That
100%.
kind of puts a little more
personability to it. Or
exactly. I can relate to it. Or like, I know that guy. I know this guy, whereas you get to that really high stuff and I'm like, I don't know Kevin Van Dam. Kevin Van Dam ain't coming in my shop tomorrow.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I do not mean that in a negative sense. I think it's the coolest one out there because of that. Like you said, you can have the guys that fish full time.
Yep.
You can have a guy that runs an auto body shop like that, but he has the ability to go fish, self-employed or something, or like you run your sonar thing. So I think it's absolutely great. Now, got a question right there. Connor Hewitt wants to know, what rods are you throwing?
I use ALX rods. They're made out of Aiken, South Carolina. Is actually a owner of the company. I started a relationship with him when I fished in college. So I did collegiate fishing.
Who'd you fish with?
Georgia Southern University in South Georgia. I graduated
party school.
It was a good time. I graduated school in 2015, so it's getting close to a decade ago that I graduated. So college fishing's changed a little bit since I did it, but long story short, we started a partnership with ALX rods in college, and then it just kind of grew through there. And now the owner, ALX, is a personal friend of mine. He's been a very good business mentor to me when I was getting into the fishing industry on what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
And I've been using his rods we started with them in 2012. So ever since 2012, I've been throwing his rods.
There you go. This is a shout out to Brian Marcuson, if he's watching, or he'll watch later. Last week, we were talking about the drawdown on Lake Allatoona, and he actually did the math. Like if it's 12,000 acres and it was 17 feet down, and he had all these percentages, and then he made a comment, and I didn't read the comment when he had to answer. So if you guys were doing the math on how long he's been using those rods, again, if I miss your comment, I'm sorry like that. Do you find that it being a small company and not one of these big, huge name brands, that you can tailor your rods more to your liking?
Yeah. So ALX rods is interesting because a lot of their blanks they make in house.
Okay.
So they have their own blank design. They have their own blank design process. We just finished designing a new rod for, it's got a lot of names, but we'll just call it the hover rig that has been really popular here lately.
Okay.
Yeah. Just spent probably about 2 months with him designing that rod, really fine tuning it. So it's really cool because number one, ALX rods, if you go to their website, you'll see everything about his website is technique specific. Their rods are literally tuned to what you're wanting to throw. Okay. I mean, you can go to his website and search for a rod based on what you want to fish. You could say, I throw a 1/4 ounce shaky head, 20 foot of water, and his website will output what rod you're supposed to pick for it. Yep. So his rods are really, really technique specific. There's varying models from the low end to the high end as far as price point you're at and what the benefits are for all of them. So to answer your question, I really do see a benefit out of working with him because he's not a giant, Abu Garcia, right? So working with the owner and he does the same thing. You can call up there and tell him what you want and they'll build you a custom rod based on what you want. Not just because I'm sponsored by them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There
Pull
you
up.
go.
Derek White. Derek, glad you're watching that. We actually talked about you today at shop that we hadn't seen you in a while. So glad you're here commenting. What are ALX rods comparable to as far as a brand?
As far as like sensitivity and the way the blanks are constructed, I would say you're going to feel a lot similar to like a G Loomis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So high end.
Yeah. Half the rod lineups are fully US made blank. They do have some imported models just to get to a price point, but they're fantastic rods. Really sensitive.
That's pretty cool. Let me go ahead and give you a second, just maybe while we're talking, since we're talking about your rods, some of your sponsors. I know we always got to give them love, but,
Yeah, I always leave some people off.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you. Yeah, that way we don't forget it.
I'll give you the rundown on sponsors. Boat-wise, sponsored by Phoenix Boats and Mercury Outboards. Power Pole, Sonar Pros, my company.
Yep.
ALX rods, Boat Logics mounts, X2 batteries, and Copper Creek hardware, and Buck and Bass and Nichols lures. That's everyone, I'm pretty sure.
You got it. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's tough.
It's
tough, but it takes those guys.
It does. 100%.
Takes that.
Yeah. And like I said, a lot of those sponsors are integrated with my business at Sonar Pros. X2 batteries, not just because I'm sponsored by them. They truly make the best batteries there are, bar none. And we move hundreds of their batteries a year. Yeah,
when we get into talking about the specifics of your business, I know batteries are going to come up because I actually had some guys come in today that were they may show up. They had some questions.
Perfect.
I'm going to try to get that.
I can get nerdy with it.
Yeah, good. And listen, be gentle with me because I can't. I'll ask the question. I like this comment. So when you talk about specific, James Collins, buddy of ours up here.
Yep.
Pull that. So you have 58 rods on deck.
Oh, our last tournament was at Eufaula, Oklahoma, and I think I had like 30 rods on the front deck. Yeah,
30 rods on the front
that place
deck.
was tough.
Wow. Connor, here it again. What is Sonar Pros? Please tell me about your business. So let's go ahead. We'll come back to the fishing and all that, but since the question is up.
Yeah, so Sonar Pros, we're based out of Dawsonville, Georgia. In a nutshell, we kind of specialize, number one, in boat rigging. Number two, we make our own dedicated wiring harness called the Sonar Pros Dedicated Wiring Harness. We came out with it about 6 years ago. It's fully waterproof, 15-year warranty, and IP65 waterproof, and pretty much that harness ensures not only, number one, your graphs get proper power, they have reliable power, and then ultimately ensure that your battery lasts throughout the day because it essentially provides proper power to the devices. We also are a dealer for all the major brands, being Garmin, Lowrance, Humminbird, Boat Logics mounts, X2 battery, so on and so forth. So pretty much anything related to a boat we can do, other than we just are not Yamaha Mercury certified. So we don't do any mechanical work. We pretty much specialize in the outfitting of the boat itself.
Okay. And so what got you into that business?
So I used to be really big into high-end car audio. Part of the reason why I can't hear worth a crap anymore these days.
I understand.
But
in my
younger days,
yeah.
I thought it was real cool to have 4 15-inch subs in the back of a F-150.
Okay, you're a bass guy.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of really learned about DC voltage. I got really big into doing installs with them and having fun trying to crack the windshield on the truck and all that good stuff. So that's where I got into DC voltage. When I got into college, I had fished my entire life, but I would say tournaments got more serious in college fishing. When I was in high school, there was not high school fishing.
I know, man. I wish it was.
Yeah. And I played sports my whole life, but when I got into college and got into college fishing, I really started moving towards, I really had a quick adoption and confidence in fishing with electronics, which back then it was just a Gen 1 Lowrance with side scan and 2D sonar and mapping. And I had a O2 Triton that put 2 graphs on it, had a 10-inch at the console and a 7-inch up front. And when I'd crank the motor, graphs would turn off. And I said, oh, that's an easy fix. Better battery. Put a battery in, still didn't fix it. I said, oh, that's a wiring problem, because what was happening was it was creating an amperage draw, which drops the voltage to the graphs. So first Sonar Pros wiring harness was an orange extension cord. I cut the ends off of it, which is not the way you should do it at all. But in college,
yes,
I had to be creative because I couldn't go buy nice wire and stuff like that. So ultimately that turned into rigging buddies' boats. Then I had some buddies make the Elite Series, started rigging their boats.
Yeah.
And then realized, holy crap, we can turn this into a business, and snowballed years from there now. I mean, we do 12 to 15 installs a week. We ship anywhere from 50 to 75 harnesses a week. Tackle Warehouse carries our harness. It's crazy to see where it's at now.
It's amazing that you had that light bulb moment.
Yep.
And now you're getting to live your dream fishing and a business surrounding, fishing in the industry and everything. Pull up that Facebook user comment right there.
That's Paul Benson.
Okay, Mr. Benson. All Sonar Pro harnesses are individually fused per unit to keep anglers fishing and make troubleshooting a breeze. Damn, that's not a commercial right there.
Yeah.
That's a T-shirt right there for you. But it is, again, this is the first time we've met. We actually just met
upstairs.
30 minutes ago. But the reputation of your company has preceded you in a lot of things. So you guys are doing it right.
That's our big thing. Like I'll be the first one to admit we're not the cheapest at all. But if you want your graphs to perform the way they're supposed to, like what you see on the marketing material, and you want to ensure that you don't have a dead battery by 1 o'clock, and you are getting the most out of your electronics, we're the place to come. 100%.
I like that. So, can you do sonar installs on a dock?
We do not do remote installs. I used to when I first started.
Right.
There is still some Milwaukee drills in the bottom of Lake Lanier as to reason why I do not do it anymore.
Yes. That makes sense.
Ultimately, what I tell people when that question comes up is it really gives us a benefit to have the boat in our shop on a nice level floor, because little things like making sure that transducer is perfectly level left to right and has the right pitch angle is very important, and that is really difficult to do on a dock that's doing this number on the water.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about batteries.
Yeah.
Big thing. Lithium or AGMs, or does it matter?
Both. I guess for context, I started getting into lithium when it first came out because I have a lot of partnerships with Elite Pros and Bass Pro Tour Pros. So a lot of them were getting some of the early lithiums that were coming out. So I've seen when lithium was real bad, when it was burning people's boats down.
Yes.
I had a lithium catch on fire in my shop. Like, I've seen it when it's real bad.
Seriously.
To where it is now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a big difference what's out now than when they
100%.
started.
There's a lot more safety. There's a lot more, like anything else, as there's more time, there's more product development, there's more R&D and learning trials from it. So,
right.
And I'll try to make this not sound too much like a sponsored plug. Like I said, I am sponsored transparently. I am sponsored by X2 Power. Well, I don't try to make it sound salesy, but when it comes to what battery to run in your boat, it ultimately comes down to what kind of boat motor you have, how many graphs you're running, all that good stuff. Because there's a lot of convoluted formulas as far as what you should and shouldn't run. Ultimately, the best when it comes to the starting battery, do not run a lithium. I don't care if the lithium company says there's a starting battery. Do not run a lithium on your cranking battery. And the main reason is this. Lithiums have a computer board inside of them called a BMS, which is a battery management system. That BMS is what regulates all the individual lithium cells. Inside a lithium battery, it looks like a bunch of AAAs in rows.
Okay, yeah.
That have their own individual circuit. And that BMS manages those circuits and says, hey, these batteries are happy. These batteries are happy. Nope, I got cell 326, not happy. Cut voltage. So the reason I say not to use lithium for a cranking battery is because a BMS could sense something wrong and just cut voltage to your motor. You could be running, and then that BMS says, I don't like what's going on, and cut all power to your motor immediately.
Even if it still has enough power, just because it's reading something.
And it's doing its job.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't want a battery that can just cut out on me out of nowhere. The other problem is with lithium is under 32 degrees Fahrenheit, they will not charge. The BMS will not allow charging if the cell temp is below 32 degrees. So you literally have to get a heating pad and heat your battery up, which is not a great thing to do in the back of a boat and heat the battery up. So the reason I say all that is like a benefit of a company like X2 is they make really good AGMs and lithiums. So how we like to run things in a nutshell is AGM for the boat, We do a standalone 12-volt lithium for the electronics, and then pick whatever your poison for trolling motors. You can do lithium or good old-fashioned AGM still work for trolling motors too.
That is very interesting.
And let me add to that.
Go ahead.
And because I get this question asked to me a lot, if you run a 2-stroke like I still do, you cannot run a lithium cranking battery. The 62.5 amp alternator will burn up. Correct?
Yes, for the most part.
So if you still run a 2-stroke, you can't have lithium cranking battery.
Yeah, and there's
you will die.
The other reason too, I say not to run a lithium cranking battery is Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki have all put out what's called a TSB on lithiums, and they all have their own little flavor. What happens is
what is a TSB?
I actually don't remember what it stands for, but it's essentially an operations bulletin that says, here's our standing or a lot of times like Mercury will put out a TSB. Hey, we're seeing an issue with this sensor needs to be removed and more Loctite needs to be put on it so oil doesn't seep out.
Almost like a troubleshooting bulletin or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they put a lot of these companies have put out TSBs on lithiums, and they have set guidelines on which what the lithium needs to have. Well, for me, with a motor with warranty, last thing I want to do is give the manufacturer an excuse to void my warranty because that lithium is 1% out of what they require. So we love the X2 AGM. We do the X2 100 amp hour lithium for electronics for the bigger setups like your 4 and 5 graph systems. We do the standalone lithium. That X2 AGM, if you got good wiring like our harness and like say 3 graphs and under, that X2 AGM will actually run everything just fine.
There is a lot to be listening to tonight, so you guys definitely need to go back and watch this again. And I'm
technical service bulletin. That's what it is. I don't know why I didn't think about that.
Hey, listen, that's why we have you guys in the comment section. So
I was like, I know it's something.
I love you guys. You guys make my job so much easier. Everybody's like, you got to think of so much stuff. I'm like, no, the comment section.
So there's a controversial question that Trent needs to answer. Right there, it says,
answer that one, but then we have some other ones.
Power pole charge or regular charge? And I'm sure you're on Facebook, so I'm sure you see some people, power pole charge is crap. I love my power pole charge.
Yep.
It seems to be like half and half. What is your opinion
That's American
on
today.
running the power pole charge?
So here's what I've learned about good old social media. You're going to hear more about the bad than the good for the most part.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
We have over the years sold a lot of power pole charges. Have there been issues? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the best part about power pole, they have literally one of the best warranty procedures in the company.
I have
in the
heard
industry.
that. I've heard that. Yes.
They are awesome to work with. Whether you're a dealer or a retailer or end consumer, whatever, they are awesome to work with. And they're Johnny on the spot quick with parts. But
yes,
when it comes to power pole charge, it has had its issues. We've learned how to circumvent those issues. I run one in my boat.
Okay.
Because for the longest time, I run twin 36 volt X2 lithiums in mine. It was one of the only chargers that was programmable to change between 3 12 volt batteries to make 36 or 2 36 lithiums in parallel. I also like it because it integrates with my Lowrance unit, so I can see the status of batteries. But they have had some issues. So ultimately, to answer your question, I do run one. The only time there is a true problem with the power pole charge is 2 scenarios. One is you're running a lithium cranking battery. It does not like a lithium cranking battery.
Yes,
I do not know why. They have a new version coming out that's supposed to fix that problem, but it does not like a lithium cranking battery. And then if you have 3 12 volt lithiums making 36 volts, what will happen is the middle battery will get what's called out of balance. We figured out how to fix it. And all you have to do is run bigger wire in your 36 volt series. You have to do at least 2 gauge wire. If you do that, like most boat manufacturers only come with like an 8 gauge wire for the 36 volt circuit. If you do a 2 gauge wire, it completely solves the problem. What was happening, and for your context, the reason the way the power pole charge works on the troll motor side with 3 12 volt batteries is your traditional charger would have a charger lead for battery 1, 2, 3, right? Mm-hmm. Power pole charge only has a lead on battery 3 and 1. The middle battery gets charged through the two outside batteries. So what was happening is, in layman's terms, that thin wire was acting like a restrictor to the charging amperage to the middle battery. So what would happen with 3 12 volt lithiums is your 2 outside batteries would be at 100%, your middle one would be at 80. And then the power pole charge would recognize that and put an error for out of balance and not charge. So what you have to do is do that bigger wire. And then the second trick with that is at the end of the year, that middle battery, just rotate it to the outside one and move the middle one in. Just do a little rotation once a year, and you'll never have a problem.
That's what I was going to. Yeah.
ask you.
Yep. That's where I
I
was
was going
going.
to ask you if you recommended every 10 to 12 months changing
Yep.
the series. Every
You just rotate that middle battery out, and it won't be a problem.
Yeah, because I had another battery manufacturer suggest that, and nobody ever does that.
Nope.
They never rotate their batteries.
Yep.
And I fish a lot in the electric only world.
Yep.
And learned that and was telling guys that, and like I never thought about that.
Yep.
So, guys, a lot of you have had questions, and if we missed them in the comments, put them back in, because there's a lot of good comments coming in, and there's a lot going on right there. So how about like Connor Hewitt? Pull that one right there. Do you need more than one graph fishing offshore on the bow, and an opinion on spot lock? Can you do without it?
That's a good question.
I don't know about the spot lock thing.
I'll answer the question on graphs. You'll look at pictures of my boat. I run 3 at the front. It's the most ridiculous thing ever that's
Yeah, you got
starting to become a thing.
like a man cave up there.
Yeah, but I own a business that installs it. Why not?
Absolutely.
But ultimately, do you have to have that to be competitive? No. You can not have forward sonar and be competitive. John Cox out of Florida, who fishes the Elite Series, Bass Pro Tour, and NPFL, he doesn't even have any forward sonar in his boat. And he's won Forest Wood Cup, Bass Pro Tour events. I think he's won an Elite event. I mean, you don't have to have forward sonar. But answer your question, how many graphs on the front? Generally speaking, here's what I recommend. If you have forward sonar, you want a standalone unit for it. And the reason being is most of these manufacturers, if let's say you have a nice 12-inch screen up front and you're running your mapping and your forward sonar off of it. Well, the unfortunate thing is when you split screen it, it shrinks that forward picture a bunch.
Yes.
So they almost force you to get your own graph for it. But we personally really like to do a standalone graph just for forward sonar. A unit we really like, if anyone's looking into it, the Garmin 1022 GPS map with the LV34 live scope is a great unit for the money, a standalone 10-inch unit. And then we like to do another unit just for mapping. Doesn't have to be big, could be a 7 or a 9, but just to give you something with good detailed mapping paired with that forward sonar, that's a really good setup for the front.
Ryan, we're actually not used to smart people on this show. And I'm trying to absorb all this information.
It's a lot.
I never watch our show. I never go back and watch it.
I do want his
opinion. I've got to
opinion.
do it tonight.
Yeah.
I do want his opinion though on something. In terms of, so Connor is he's a young up and coming high school angler.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him several times, and I've told him that, we got all this new technology that's out there and all of it's fantastic and utilize it. I mean, I utilize it, forward facing sonar, everything. But spotlock trolling motor, if you had to make a choice between forward sonar and a spotlock trolling motor, I think, in my opinion, and I want to know your opinion because I asked this question.
Mine's going to be probably different.
It's going to be okay. So my opinion, I think the spotlock trolling motor is bar none, probably.
Yeah, I knew where Ryan was going. Yep.
I think it's revolutionized bass fishing, period. So what's your opinion on it?
I would argue forward sonar. And the reason being is in tournament fishing, everything's about time management. And me, if I'm spot locked sitting on a spot, I'm not doing my job. And there's a lot about moving around an area and relocating fish. You could be on a hump and think you have the cast dialed in. Well, those fish just moved off about 30 feet to the left because you pressured them on that one spot. Me personally, the only times I really use spot lock is I'm culling or retying. And that's it. Now, is it beneficial in those scenarios? 100%. Because back in the old days, running a Motor Guide Pro Tour or a Fortrex, and you go to retie or cull a fish, and all of a sudden you're 6 miles away from your spot. Like 100%, there's a value to that. But for me personally, like I said, a lot of people would normally argue with me on this. But for me personally, the way I fish, I'm a run and gun fisherman. It's probably because of how I fished Lanier for so long. Like, I do not spot lock on areas. I always am trying to move around and learn what's in that area.
I like the fact that, and I knew where Ryan was going.
Yeah, 100%.
And like
I said, everyone fishes different. That's my mentality.
And I will say, in the electric only world, we can't run and gun as much. So spot lock's very important.
Very important.
But I like the fact that you've got a differing opinion, but you can back it up on why you've got that. So I get that.
There's different trains of thoughts on anything. Like I said, you don't have to have forward. Like, I think the problem with the industry right now is this concept that you have to have all these electronics. It's counterintuitive for me to say this in my business because I want you to buy graphs from us. But you don't have to have all these electronics to be competitive. Is it an added tool to make you more efficient on the water? 100%.
Yeah.
But you can be competitive without it. And honestly, the tournaments I don't do well in are pre-spawn. You'll look at my tournament history. I'm terrible pre-spawn. And that's because I can't catch them on electronics. Post-spawn, you better watch out.
You got it. Well, no, I love that you say that. And Connor, listen, you say you can't afford the spotlight right now, buddy.
Expensive.
Hey, listen, keep grinding and keep grinding. Work hard, and you're definitely going to get it. Now, this Facebook user, I don't know if this going up.
Right.
I don't know if this is Benson
It's
or
probably
not.
still Benson.
Probably Benson. Pull that thing up. What was your strategy in weighing one on day 3 at Eufaula? Normally, in a 5-day, it's better to have
Gotta be
5 fish.
Benson.
It's got to be Benson.
It's gotta
Benson's
be Benson.
ragging you a little bit.
So our last tournament was on Eufaula, Oklahoma. I have no history there. I never
Yeah.
pre-practiced there.
It was a grinder, wasn't
Oh God. Day one,
Oh, God.
day one, I was in third,
Yeah.
and then day 2, after day 2, I was leading the event going into day 3. I had never led an event, like a major event like that. Like when I won Saginaw, I was in third day 1, second day 2.
Worked your way
and won
up.
the way tournament, right?
So
I normally can creep my way up. This was my first time leading event, and I learned a lot about
Pressure?
the unfortunate thing of leading an event. And everyone knows who you are in a wrapped boat.
Ah.
So-
People don't talk about that.
And that was actually Corbusley.
Who was that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
and he has no room to talk because he was leading day 2 and choked 2. So he choked day 2 and then I choked day 3.
that's
so
funny.
he's
Let's
shooting
just be
shots.
clear: the roommates both did the same thing. We both choked on the tournament. But anyways, that last day, so the lake was fishing super stingy. I was catching them on rock and brush piles, and I had spent the water kept rising and in practice, and I spent 2.5 days of practice fishing shallow, and you would catch like 40 bass in a day, and 3 would keep. It was the most frustrating place I've ever been to.
Right.
And yeah, it's like Altoona. I would argue this place is more the Dead Sea than Altoona, but it's still ultimately like it was still a cool venue because it was a change up from smallmouth. Like we had smallmouth event before where you're hooking up catching 4 or 5 pound smallmouth, and then anyways, so
I know where you're going.
like day 1, I was really I going into that tournament day 1, I really had no idea what I was going to do, and I ran what I thought was my shallow deal and caught like 30 fish for an hour and a half, and none of them kept. So I was like, all right, let's go run brush piles. I ran across the lake, pull up first brush pile, and Corbishley, who's trying to talk crap on there.
Yeah, he
I
is.
pull up on this brush pile and he comes in and he's like, man, you got him? I'm like, no. And then I go, man, that's a bite. And I catch a 5-pounder right in front of him. I was like, that's a big fish for here.
Yeah.
Go to the next brush pile, catch a 4-pounder. And then I had 14 something that day. And Corbishley was leading after day 1. He had 16. And then day 2, improved my weight, moved into first place position. Day 3, I did the old adage that I love to do, which is live by the sword and die by the sword. And I died by the sword. I didn't adapt. I stuck on my offshore fish, and I still caught fish, but they were shorts.
Right.
I unfortunately had about 2 boats that decided to also fish my stuff that they hadn't fished for 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
And that put some pressure on it when I realized that was going on. And ultimately, I looking back on it, I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I only needed 10 pounds to win the tournament.
Yeah.
I ended up only weighing in 1 fish the last day and
Oh,
fell
man.
from first to 19th. Still got paid, but
Still got paid, but yeah.
you know, had the opportunity to win $200,000 in 2 months, and it slipped
Dude,
away
yeah.
by not getting a limit. But like I said, I learned a lot about fish management that I probably should have done better about day 2, because I caught some fish that were little coals that I knew I was hurting my fish.
Right.
And then day 3, I've learned leading an event like that where you got camera boats following you, you got people on the water watching you, following you, and you got competitors that are interested in what you're doing. You have to be able to completely adapt on what you had before. And I did not adapt. I just stuck to running and gunning brush piles, and then it didn't work out.
But did you learn from it?
100%.
Yeah, that's the
100%.
thing. How is it? How's the feeling of going into that? Just mentally the night before. Did you sleep the night before? And I love the fact that you and your buddies can talk shit on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that.
So,
because it's good.
I slept
nature
good because I was being cocky. Because I
Uh-huh.
won the event before, and I was like, man, I'm about to win another one.
I got this.
And then I'm going to go to Lanier.
I
was
got
like,
this.
This is going to be a good year fishing. And we were talking, all of us were talking smack in the house because, like, we were making fun of Corbishley for choking on camera. And I was very confident until about the 4-hour mark into the tournament.
Then you
And
knew something was.
I was
yeah.
like, this is not going the way it should be. And then
Yeah.
the adage, when you know stuff's real bad being the leader and you start seeing the camera boat leave you and the media boat leave you
Oh, does that
and
happen?
all the people leaving you, you know someone else is doing better and they're leaving you because you're not doing well. And then you're like, holy
Seriously.
crap, this is really bad now.
You know what? That is something I've never thought about because I just thought they stuck with you throughout. I mean,
No.
they'll actually leave you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
That's again, most people we're sitting back in the comfort of our home or whatever, and we're watching it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You want another one?
No, we're good.
Okay, you good. And we're watching it, and I don't think about the things like that.
Yeah.
Because then now you're like, you got the pressure, but now you're like, okay, something's up.
Something's up. Yep.
They're leaving. Somebody else is
Yep.
nailing them.
And the alternative can happen too, because that's what happened to me day 2. I started catching them day 2, and they're like, I can tell, like, camera boat shuts down, they're hanging around me, and like you're like, okay, if the camera boat stops and actually stays on you for a while, you know you're doing things right. But then they leave you, you're like, oh no.
You know what, Ryan? Did you ever think about that? You watch a lot of tournament fishing, Ryan. Have you ever thought about that? Just how it might feel when the camera boat leaves? Do you ever even think about that? Because you watch a lot of tournament fishing. That I don't. You do.
If I was in Trent's shoes and I was fishing, and first of all, probably Trent can say this, it's like after 4 hours, it's like, well, I suck.
Yeah, you're like, I started thinking in my head, I was like, wow, 100 grand's gone.
It's kind of like, well, I really suck, and somebody else is doing pretty good. So bye.
I have never honestly sat there and thought about that.
Yeah.
I've never thought.
Oh,
about
you'll
that.
get mine. Like I said, I learned a lot being the leader. Looking back on it, like I said, a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda. Again, I had no history there either. Like my goal going out there was 2 things: get a check and get good points to make sure we make the championship, right? And if someone had told me a week before, hey, you're going to finish in the top 20, you're going to get your check, and you're going to go home happy, like I've been like, heck yeah, I'll do that. And obviously, after what happened, I'm driving home for the freaking 14 hours, mad as can be, all the way across the states.
That's exactly my next question.
Yeah.
Once that happened,
yeah,
the ride home.
Oh, it was bad because I have my tow rig's a diesel F250, and I just put a 62-gallon tank in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not stop for 60 gallons in that thing. Like,
was he just pissed
off?
off?
I was just burned. I'm surprised I didn't get a speeding ticket. I was burning that awful I-40 highway back to Georgia.
But again, that's another thing when it comes to the, even on a small tournament, guys fishing a pot tournament, you go home, you think about the shoulda, couldas and all that. But when you're fishing for a check like that,
it's different.
Because like what you said, 100,000 or 20,000.
Yep. Like I said, my situation was different because I already got the win for the year.
But
so I had some confidence going into it because to me it was like whatever happens, and you'll see like there were some interviews they posted on their social medias, and that's pretty much what I said. I have no expectations today. I could catch one. I literally said in the interview I could catch one fish, and that's what happened. And that's ultimately what happened. But when you're fishing for that kind of money, it gets stressful. But I mean, looking back on that event, I'm happy with how it turned out. I really wish Corbishley would have pulled off a win. We were hoping the house would go 1, 2, 3 and wins too. But
where's he out of?
Raleigh, North Carolina. He actually, I don't know his official title. He works for Lawrence. He's the sales rep for all the boat builders. So he sells to Triton, Phoenix, all that good stuff.
If we'd have known that, we should have got him because we can pipe people in. We should have piped him in tonight.
Corbishley is very well educated on Lawrence product fishing. He's a heck of a stick offshore. You look up at any of the local tournaments off of Falls Lake up in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's pretty much wins every single one up there. Okay. And he fished. I convinced him to fish with us last year when I hopped in when I first got introduced to Benson and kind of got the introduction to fish the league. Yeah. I called Mike because he traveled with me at Toyotas. I said, dude, you need to come hop in this thing. And he had a good year last year. We both did. And then this year he's having a heck of a year too.
That's all. Well, Benson, he's a different.
Mike Corbishley, this is your official invite to join us here on the live well.
He's probably still rigging tackle.
Okay, so how come every time? Let's see.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Kurt, we hunt. There's not a different beer. It's just bottles. It's all empty bottles. Okay.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I got a question. All right. So Lanier, we're not going to talk it, but I do have a serious question to ask you about that. What's it going to feel like? This is fishing the NPFL. What's it going to feel like to be able to lay your head down every single night, practice through the tournament in your own bed going into this event?
I'm looking forward to it. I haven't had like any stressors for this tournament. Again, I got the win my goal for the year was to win a tournament.
So yeah, you've done that.
Like again, same concept Eufaula. And the other funny thing was that Eufaula, I actually found out if you win a tournament, you're automatically in the championship. So points don't matter for me anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. We found out. Brad clarified it for us, and I was like, oh well, that changes things.
You need to know that going into the
yeah.
thing,
So
Brad. Hey, come on, Paul, you guys gotta do that.
It was my fault for not reading the
Probably,
contract all the way.
It's
definitely in the contract. I brought it up to Brad. He's like, I'm pretty sure it's in you win and you're in. Well, anyways, so I live, without getting like my address, I live in around 6 Mile. It takes me like 120 seconds to get to Young Deer Park.
Okay.
So like to be able to be at home and fish at home and be comfortable, like I'm definitely looking forward to it. Now, being that I've fished here for so long, that can also be a bad thing.
I was going to say, there's got to be added stress if you basically consider this your home lake.
Yeah, there is 100% can be a bad thing. And I'll use an example. Last year, Palmetto Boat Center had their championship here. Me and my buddy Dean, who we fish on Lanier a good bit together, we did all the right pre-work for it, how we thought the lake would shape out. And that turnover came in, and we stayed stubborn with what we wanted to fish, which is turning and burning and fast-moving baits. And when the turnover came in, those fish can't see. It did not pan out. We actually barely had even competitive weight the first day and pulled out of the tournament after day one. So there's very much so, even though I got a lot of history here and I've done well in a lot of tournaments here, it could be just as much help as it does hurt. Now, the way the lake's shaping up, it's starting to line into the regional. I finished third in here to make the All-American. So I'm pretty excited to fish it.
So Paul says we need to get you, Corvishley, and Patrick together on a show one time. Hey, listen, I'm all for it. We'll figure out. We'll make it happen the week before, though, just so you guys can talk.
We're some goofballs together, and Patrick's a hoot. Patrick needs to have his own reality TV show. In all honesty,
then he'll fit in right here. Because when you say
the only weird thing is he wears shorts that come up like above his mid thigh.
God, what is with him in the shorts,
dude? It's bad.
He'd be in Florida on the Elite Series, and he's got them. He looks like he's about to go pole vault.
Yeah, it's bad.
Wait a second.
He says his wife likes it, so that's why
I'm older and I believe in above the knee. I'm not a big cargo guy.
Yeah. Well, when you watch basketball, they had high ball.
Are we talking about Larry Bird shorts?
Larry Bird shorts.
Oh yeah.
So nut huggers.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
100%.
He's a nut hugger.
Yeah, he has to be careful when he moves around on the boat when he has a camera on the boat.
Oh, he got a squirrel down there too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Patrick's up there working his live scope, throwing a jerk bait, and he is like,
is he casting the shadow
up to here with his shorts, and they are like,
does he cast the shadow though? I mean, is he one of those that he should be wearing those tight shorts?
He's tan because I think that's all.
I ain't talking about his tan.
Every time I see a tournament with Patrick
can you pull
if
a
he ain't
picture
got bibs
or Mike,
on?
if Mike still listen, Mike could drop a picture of.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, now listen, I had a father-in-law. He wore those. You remember those coaching shorts back in the day? That were like we're talking.
That's what I grew up with. My dad was a basketball
like the
coach.
Russells. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
they're like 6 inches below your crotch, and they're like, okay. I'm not that bad. But that's what he. How old is he?
Patrick, he is 29.
Oh, so he's young and wearing them.
Yeah. In 5 years of fishing the elites, I think he's won like 1.4 million.
If you win 1.4 million, you wear whatever the hell you want to wear.
Yeah,
and be fashionable like that. Who is the next local Georgia angler who will break on to the national scene?
Emil.
Emil. That was Emil.
But he's broke on. He's broke onto it. I know. I think he's fishing a professional circuit next year.
Is he?
Yeah, I think he's doing the Tackle Warehouse Series. Remember right?
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, maybe. I might have spilled the beans.
We do want to do this.
Or someone commented it. Alex Prince for sure. That dude is hard to beat out.
And he's in the lead after day 2 in the ABA Nationals.
Alex is?
Yeah, he is.
Hartwell.
He's in the lead.
Does anyone know who's leading the regional today on Eufaula?
If you guys know that, put it in the comment section. And again, Braves game's getting ready to start. You guys keep us up to date. Please have good news only. Alex Prince, I haven't met him yet. Love to get him on the show, but he's a name.
Stick. Yeah.
Emil's there. But after those two, anybody else that really
probably gonna hurt someone's feelings by not thinking of them right now, but trying to think who's like actually, because there's a difference between there's a big difference between being Emil's a good example of this. There's a big difference between a local stick and fishing on the road. There's a drastic difference between the two.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to tell you, when it comes to fishing, I don't fish locally that much anymore because I just flat out can't compete with, you got guys that are on the lake 7 days a week.
Yes.
That gets hard. I'm not trying to make up excuses. Like I can be competitive when I want to be, but ultimately, like I think what's always impressive to me is to see someone catch them on the road. Because I think that's almost more impressive than being a local stick on your home pond you fish every day.
I agree.
So I'm trying to think of guys that I know that are traveling and being competitive in Georgia.
And that's why Emil has caught the attention.
Yeah.
Emil does
O'Connell's a good. Yeah, O'Connell's catching them good.
Yeah,
Yep.
O'Connell, he's going to be a good one.
I know young Buddy Benson, he's doing pretty good.
I coached Buddy in Little League football.
Really?
He was my quarterback.
Yeah.
He's going to be
There's a lot of young guns coming up that are I think back to when I played basketball. I played basketball my whole life.
Right.
And it's cool to see now the high school fishing kind of form into what high school sports were for me, which is you got parents that want to see their kids be successful and they're helping them be successful by giving them the opportunity to go fish wherever, whenever they want. Same concept of like when I played ball, you had training camps, you had summer camp, all that stuff. So I love seeing that fishing's kind of turning into this other atmosphere where father-son deals getting together and moving forward. And I think Buddy Benson's a good example of that because he's holy crap, I knew I would upset someone. Freaking junior.
Paul Marks, yeah, Paul Marks, that's
good.
another one.
Yeah.
It is really tough because you do forget so many people when you're thinking. Paul Marks is very successful so far in his young career.
Yep.
But yeah, what's really cool is like you talking about that, watching kids come up through high school is like, and even with Buddy.
Yep.
Because I remember when he was a little snot-nosed 9-year-old kid, and I'm screaming at him like I'm the devil because he ran the wrong play. But he also has a support system of his dad.
100%.
Because his dad's he's a really good friend of mine. So it is cool when you make the investment in a kid
and seeing it produce. Yep.
And it's kind of like travel baseball these days. Used to, if you play travel baseball, how old are you?
32.
Okay, so you're 20 years young, about 20 years younger than me. Back in my day, you didn't have travel ball, and then as it started, it was the elite kids play travel ball. Now
32.
everybody plays travel ball.
Yeah,
so it's kind of watered down. Huh?
Where did you go to school at?
You talking to me?
Him.
Yeah, where'd you go to school?
In high school?
Yeah,
Stars Mill High School down in Fayetteville, Peachtree City area.
Gotcha.
Oh, so you're not
from up here. No, when I graduated college,
you're a Flatlander.
Yeah, when I graduated college and got a corporate job, I wanted to live up on the lake, so I moved up here.
Okay.
And I used to commute down to Atlanta.
So, okay, let me ask you this question. Bassmaster magazine was ranking all the lakes. Do you get Bassmaster?
Yeah.
Did you read the rankings of the lakes?
I think I didn't read I barely read those magazines. I have like a pile of them, but I think I saw it online. I think Lanier was
on it, but of the lakes in Georgia or bordering Georgia, it was the fifth.
It was the fifth?
It was the fifth.
What was one?
Ryan, do you remember? I know Sinclair ranked above it. Hartwell ranked above it.
Sinclair did?
No. In the
Sinclair and Oconee can
inside,
say this.
Inside the state of Georgia, it was Sinclair.
Highest ranked
was Sinclair, Eufaula.
Uh-huh.
And then it was West Point, and then Lanier.
Who came up with that ranking?
Hartwell was there, but Hartwell was right there, right next to Lanier. But most of Hartwell is in South Carolina.
It said this. It was funny. I don't know who the heck come up with that ranking.
Probably
the same guy that said Allatoona.
I don't know. Whoever said West Point. Georgia. Yeah.
That guy like that. But
especially when it's nice and low and it's just clay bank everywhere. Yeah, it's
like,
great.
what picture did you see? There was somebody in New York. It was somebody in New York that said it was the most beautiful lake in Georgia. But they had it said Lake Lanier, 5th ranked lake in the state of Georgia, but it's one of the premier, if not the premier, spotted bass destination in the nation. No, they were talking about Lanier.
Oh, Lanier, gotcha.
So it was like it's the premier lake in the country, but it's the 5th best lake in Georgia. But what lake did you grow up fishing?
So mom and dad's side of the family are from New York and Illinois. So
got a little Yankee.
I grew up. Well, we moved down here as 5, but yeah,
okay.
technically, I got a little Yankee. 5 years of Yankee in me.
Do you eat grits?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Yeah. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and so I grew up fishing 2 places: Lake Champlain and a small lake in Wisconsin, where we have a family lake house that's been our family for like 60 years. That's where I grew up fishing ultimately, and then fished some down south around the house and like small little reservoir lakes in Peachtree City and stuff. And then when I went to college is when I started just kind of
branching
diving into it.
Pull up Jason's comment right there. Another new name that I've not seen on the show. If you have, excuse me, I missed it, but appreciate you watching that. This is something, this is the reason why I had him pull it up, that we don't talk about this ever, because right here is peak male athletic performance right here. If you look at me, Dad Bod Pruitt right here. But as a tournament angler, some people will say, wow, that must be the life. As a former athlete, can you compare it to the physical requirements and fatigue? You talk about the physical requirements and fatigue of tournament fishing. We never talk about that.
Yeah,
especially
fishing. What was a big change? So the NPFL is interesting in the sense that we fish. There's no cuts. We fish all 3 days.
Yeah,
and there's a big difference between fishing your local pot tournament on a Saturday to a 3-day tournament. I mean, it is draining, mentally draining, especially if you're doing something like fishing a tough fishery where you're begging for 5 bites a day. The other thing too is a lot of it's a mental game. I mean, again, everyone has their own different situation when it comes to tournament fishing. If you're, again, I'm in a fortunate position where I have sponsor support that makes it easy on me from a financial perspective. If I didn't have that and I was fishing tournament to tournament, like pretty much being like, wow, if I don't cash a check, we're racking up the credit card some more.
Yeah.
You talk about a mental game that I know some guys play, that will put you down a rabbit hole and it will beat you up. And it's, obviously you don't have to be the most, there's probably a benefit to being, in shape and fishing. I'm not an example of that, but
you're in better shape than I am.
Ultimately it is definitely a mental game. I mean, you are wore out after 3 days of tournament fishing.
Yeah. I like Justin Speech's comment. Watch it, Danny. Listen, hey, I know what you look like, buddy. You and I are in the same classification right there. So there you go. You had a comment, Matt. Pull that one right up above Justin's right there. Going up right there. So this is a regional you asked about. Matt Wataya? I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Regional leader.
21.04 is the regional leader. So
I'll have to see if any of the Georgia boys did good.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. Phillies brought back their old school uniforms. Here's a good question from Ron. How many days of practice are you using per tourney?
Yeah, so NPFL, as we talked at the start of the show, we have an off-limits period. It's essentially 3 weeks before the first day of practice, and then we get 3 days of official practice. There are some guys that will go out in pre-practice lakes. Like I said, I traditionally don't do that. I did that this year at Saginaw Bay and then obviously Lanier. But we technically get 3 days of official practice. Essentially, the lake's off limits for almost a month before the tournament starts.
Do you like that?
Love it.
And why?
I did Toyotas for a long time, and I was pretty competitive in them. But then you would sit there, and I'm not trying to make excuses for why guys would beat me, but I'm just saying when you would sit there and hear a guy brag about being in the lake for 2 weeks straight to cut a $1,800 check, you're like, bro, what are you doing? And like number two, I'm not saying it's impossible to compete with someone like that, but it definitely, when you only have a day or two to practice and you don't have any familiarity with the lake, like it can be tough. So what I like about the off limits period is it kind of puts us all on the same playing field, because you can go pre-practice a month prior, but the lake a month prior is different than the lake that you're fishing now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, he was talking about the Yankee comment. Well, Justin, you're one of my favorite Yankees as well. Listen, can't help where you guys were born.
Yeah.
Right? So you just weren't
like
blessed.
I said, I was born in Ohio, and it was we moved here when I was 5.
Okay,
so.
but like, listen, Ohio's pretty country though. If
it
you
is.
Get outside
there's
the
a lot of cornfields up there.
That's what I learned about Michigan.
Yeah,
when
a lot of cornfields up there.
When they said we were going to Michigan, I was like, yeah,
you think about Detroit,
Dust Bowl, crime, and all that. You get above all that.
Yeah,
it's
Kid
beautiful.
Rock.
Well, what's interesting,
Kid Rock. I did not think about Kid Rock when I was doing it.
Last year we had a tournament on Erie too, and I guess I had never really drove through Illinois before.
Right.
Illinois is like all cornfields too, and all I think about Illinois is Chicago, because that's where my mom grew up, and we used to go to Chicago to see my grandfather all the time. So all I think about Illinois is Chicago. So
yeah, and that's
not a great place anymore.
Yeah, so I've been to Pike County on deer hunting. It's like that place is always just amazing.
There's some magnums up there.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
And I went with Buddy's dad, Sam.
Oh really? Oh yeah, they go up there. He goes up there
He's
with.
Got a club.
He goes up there with. I can't think of his name right now. That's bad.
Angling and all them. Strayhorn goes up there.
Yeah, Strayhorn.
Oh yeah, I've had Strayhorn drive me to my stand before.
Yeah, Strayhorn's a hoot.
I like Strayhorn.
Yeah.
So that place, but again, it's like a lot of places. You kind of prejudge it by the big city.
Yep.
But once you get outside of the city, and a lot of these places I'm getting to travel to,
It's a whole different game.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hold it against you from Ohio. Cause
Yeah.
like
I
you
said,
guys got
when
some big deer up there too.
Yeah, Saginaw Bay in Michigan, that place is really cool. It's all farmland pretty much around the lake, and it's one of those areas where they have little like lake cities or
Yeah.
little lake towns everywhere
Yes,
where they have their
yes.
own little square, and they're like separated by like 10 miles on the shores of the bay. That stuff, I think that's super
That's
cool
the
to
way
me.
Michigan was. So you had Glen Arbor, then Frankfurt,
Yep.
Leelanau, and all that. Go up to
Yep.
Traverse City.
Yep. It's
Different
cool.
world, but
Yeah.
but people don't think about that.
No. Yeah.
People don't, and that. So let me ask you this: if you could pick one lake, and I know Paul Benson's listening to this, if you could pick one lake outside of course Lanier, across the entire country that you wish the NPFL would fish, or one area,
It's easy. Champlain.
Champlain,
Mm-hmm.
Champlain, and why?
I fished there for a lot of years, and it's also arguably one of the best fisheries in the country.
I try to tell
Special place. I also have heard through the grapevine, and Paul Benson can confirm.
that.
for me
Okay,
on that,
Paul, you're on the clock.
that we are going to New York next year, and it's either Champlain or St. Lawrence. But we'll see if that's
That
true
would
or
be
not.
awesome.
Yeah,
That would be awesome. And that's another. I try to tell everybody since I've come back from Michigan, like I caught more fish in Michigan in 2 weeks than I did in Georgia for like a year. The fishing's amazing up north, and I'd love to get over there on Champlain, all that. How often do you change
Dang
your
it.
line and reels fishing a 3-day tournament? How much prep work do you do every night when you come in?
it depends on what I'm fishing, how I'm fishing. I'll give the example of when we were up at Saginaw Bay fishing 3 days of smallmouth.
Oh,
I had 10 spinning poles on the front deck, and I would use all 10 of those every day. And it was pretty much 5 of a Ned rig and 5 of a drop shot. Like same weight, same hook, just slight variations in baits. And I won't say what those baits are because I have a little formula.
I understand.
But that tournament, pretty much every day off the water, I was cutting all the leaders and retying them. Now I wasn't respooling them, but I was cutting the leaders and retying them, which takes forever doing that with spinning poles. Tournament like Eufaula, where I pretty much narrowed in on I had a bunch of rods out, but ultimately I was fishing with 4 or 5 rods. I'll respool. Every day of the tournament, I'll go through and respool an entire bait caster.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So
You don't realize fishing in a day, especially if you've cut a bait off and retied it and you're burning down that line on the spool. It's crazy. If you run your hand over your line, just slowly peel the line off your spool, you'll feel how many imperfections there are on the line from you fishing it throughout the day. Things like your rod strap grabbing that line when you're closing the front deck. Maybe you dropped a rod down another rod and it nicked the line. Little stuff like that will lead to your line breaking. And when you're fishing for $100,000, respooling a bait caster, losing a fish for $100,000.
I get
yeah.
it. Do you got ADHD or any of that stuff, or are
Not that
you
I'm aware of.
or are you just that anal? I've got to do this.
I've just had situations where I didn't do it and it hurt me.
Okay, well that's
I've
from
learned
experience.
from experience.
From experience,
Yep.
so that's good.
And then traveling with Patrick, because he literally does this for a living, seeing what he does and him kind of sharing his expertise on why he does certain things is really eye-opening too.
So you pay attention.
Yeah.
I get that. So on the pre-fishing, Ron Swinford wants to know, and also Ron, put that. I think it was you that was in the shop today, and you had the battery question. Make sure you put that
Battery.
question back up. I want to make sure. And Strider just struck out Schwarber with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, so maybe this will be the night for the Braves right there.
I
How
hope
much
so.
fishing do you actually do in the 3-day practice? And are you one of the guys that will just let them pick it up and drop it, or are you setting the hook? You know what I'm talking about? A lot of guys.
I guess this question, I think he's saying how much I idle.
Yeah, do you idle around?
It depends.
What are you doing?
It depends on where and what I'm targeting. Like Saginaw Bay, for example, I pretty much idled the entire practice. I knew what I was looking for, and if I found it, there was no point to fish it.
Okay, that's what I think he's looking for.
You go to a place like we were at Wright Patman earlier in the year, which is a shallow lake in Texas. Awesome place. Has flooded bushes everywhere. That place, you had to fish to figure out where they were at. You could not idle it and find them. I just had to throw a swim jig at the bank all day.
Was it up?
No, they were drawing it down.
They were drawing it down. Now, didn't they fish that the year before?
They fished it the first year and they cracked them.
And that was up, though. Wasn't
It
it
was
up
super
that year?
high flooded. Yeah.
And so this year you went there
was
and
down.
it was super down.
Yeah. Yeah. But which was kind of cool because if you found cover in the water, there was always a fish on it for the most part. And those fish are my buddy Corbishley legitimately had a cut from when he was culling a fish. It bit him in the live well. It charged his hand and bit his hand in the live well. Those fish are mean out there.
At Wright Patman.
Yeah, they're mean. When a 1-pounder would about rip the rod out of your hand on a swim jig with 65-pound braid.
I was getting ready to say, isn't Wright Patman a swim jig leg?
Yeah, I love throwing a swim jig. When I'm out offshore, about the only confidence I have in the bank is a swim jig. and I could keep that in my hand all day and catch fish, which was fun.
Yeah, I think I remember watching Jesse Millsap fish a year
Yeah.
before. And
Yeah, he was catching them on it.
on a swim jig
Yep.
and everything. So interesting lake right there. So got a comment there. It's off the list, Paul. So
I don't believe him.
yeah, Paul, come on, Paul.
He told me last year, I had pretty much, I knew Lanier was on the schedule, and I
Yeah.
reached out to him and I said, hey, and I sent him a picture of a 5-pound spot. I said, Lanier would be really fun to come to in October.
Yeah.
And he said, man, maybe the next year. So I don't believe anything.
All
he
right.
says.
So listen, Paul Benson, you are officially on the clock. Get Champlain on the schedule.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's right.
I wanted to the Paul, you haven't responded to my text message, a comment I made you twice about this now. So I'm looking at you, Paul Benson.
We're just gonna give Paul hell.
The last tournament on Eufaula, the live scope camera work,
Yep.
phenomenal. What did you think about that? Because, you know, the big argument always is in terms of live scope fishing on the professional levels, like people like get rid of
Boring.
it because it's boring.
But it is boring
But,
to watch.
Well,
Yeah, when they had their head down.
the NPFL last time over there on the Eufaula,
Here.
y'all had an absolutely fantastic way
Show
of
you.
doing it.
Oh, you gonna
What
show?
are you going to show
I'm
something?
going to show him it so he can see what we
Okay.
did.
Okay, cool. So, but for those of you guys who did not
Look at
watch
that
while
picture
he
of you looking at your phone right
Yeah.
there.
Pulled-
What a millennial.
yeah. So while he pulls it up on his phone, wherever he's pulling up, for those of you guys who didn't see though,
Well,
they
there's no
actually
service
had the
down here.
Garmin.
Oh yeah, I didn't
They
think about
actually
it.
had the
That's all
Garmin,
good.
the live scope with the guys, and you could see the live scope, and you could see what they were
Yeah, so
doing.
they did a picture in a picture. Is what they
Yeah.
did.
And that's what they need. If
Yeah.
that is the easiest, simplest solution. but,
100%.
You know, you're a good looking fella, but the back of your neck all day
It's
is
not
worth-
attractive.
it's-
No. And so it was
not
kind of,
that you don't have
No,
an attractive back of
yeah.
your neck. It's just
It
I don't
was-
want to watch it.
it was funny because a few weeks prior,
The gallery's looking at me over there.
a few weeks prior, one of the other owners, Brad Fuller, reached out to me and he was like, hey man, I want to lean on your expertise. You know, obviously we think that the Eufaula tournament's probably going to be one offshore the way it's
Mhm.
shaping up, possibly. You know, how do you think we can go about doing this picture in the picture thing? And there's unique nuances with each brand because Garmin, the only way to do that is with an 86 series unit, which is a saltwater unit, which I run one on my boat. It actually just has an HDMI out on the back of the unit. The other units like the Echo Maps and GPS Maps, they don't have a way to output it unless you have a box that's called a 8700 box, but it's a new box that just came out. It's like $6,000 just for the processor box.
Gotcha.
Lowrance, there's a trick that we ended up putting together with the help of Mike Corbishley that we would screen share the Lowrance to an iPad and then that iPad output to the actual deal. Essentially how it works. So there's unique nuances. And it was funny. I was talking to Brad. I was like, well, the good news is like, if I'm doing well in that tournament, I have a unit we can do it really easy in. And sure enough, after day one, we just pretty much hooked it to the back of my unit, ran an HDMI cable down my gunnel and taped it. And then it hooked into this box thing that outputs all the cell signal. And that's how they were able to do the two, which was pretty cool. But it got really good feedback.
Yeah.
Because the last Elite Series event got a lot of negativity around forward sonar, how it's kind of boring to watch. And I think this kind of gave a sample of ultimately where coverage and tournament should go with forward sonar, because it's a whole different game when an angler's sitting there saying, oh God, he's down on my bait, he's nosed up to it. And then you see on the screen, the guy's drop shot go down and that fish follow it down. And they're sitting there trying to coerce it to bite.
Yeah, and for somebody like me that really doesn't watch a lot of the tournaments, that I would find a lot more interesting.
Yep.
As opposed to the back.
Doing that. And the other thing too is like it gave a really good example day 3 in my situation that just because you have forward sonar, just because you can see them, just because you have the right cover and bait does not mean you can catch them. And it's a good example to show that too.
Yes, sir. So so we got comments going on about the Braves in there. I got a question just because you mentioned Brad. You talked about talking to Paul. How do you like having a tournament series where the main guys that run the trail look to the anglers for suggestions, or will at least come to you and say, how can we do this to make the product better?
I think it's great. And I think it's the reason they're going to be successful in the foreseeable future. I think next year is going to be the best year they've ever had.
Yeah.
I'll give a really good example, whether Paul wants me to talk about it or not. Last year, they came out with a schedule that a lot of us did not agree with, me especially. And just from a logistics and financial perspective and the payout that was on the table, it's like this doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
And they were very receptive to feedback. They listened to the anglers. We voiced our opinions. We got together on conference calls and talked about, hey, we want all of us to be successful in this. And Brad, I'll give the utmost credit to all of them. They listened to us. And now, obviously, there's a lot of things behind the scenes with how a schedule's made.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That a lot of people and a lot of things we don't know that we can't just simply say we don't want to go to that lake.
Right.
Moving on. And but they were very receptive and gave really good feedback back and forth. And I think that was just a good example of why I re-signed up this year. Was just simply, it was awesome to work with leadership in a tournament organization that actually care about the anglers and how successful we are. And same thing when I won that tournament, Brad forced my girlfriend up on the stage with me to hold the check and everything. And they're giving us hugs and everything for winning. Like they're just as invested in it as we are, which is cool.
So it almost sounds kind of like a little family cohesive, like a family.
Yes, very much so.
In a professional tournament
Very
situation.
Much so. Yep.
Which is, again, back to the working man thing that I said earlier, but family, all that, the community and everything.
And what I like about
that's cool.
And what I like about them too is, like, just as much as they'll take feedback and whatnot, if they don't agree with something you're doing or saying, they'll tell you. They're not going to sugarcoat it. And I appreciate that because I dealt with corporate America forever, and the sugarcoat stuff is not fun.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I get Ron's, and you might have answered this, but I want to make sure I get that. Do you like a dedicated lithium battery for electronics, not the cranker, but just an added battery for the electronics? And also, too, and I don't remember if it was Ron, because I'm going to go take a bathroom break. So I'm going to give you a large 2-part question so you can answer while I'm going. And I don't remember if it was Ron, but somebody had mentioned about during the day, their graph works great to start.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of the day, it starts kind of phasing out a little
100%.
bit. So maybe answer Ron's question and then talk about the guys that have all the stuff, how they can prevent that from happening.
Perfect. So answer your question on dedicated lithium. Ultimately, I'm a big fan of it. It's what I run in my boat. We normally recommend a dedicated lithium if you're running more than, say, 3 12-inch screens. You're running 4 or 5 screens, but there's a benefit to it, period. The reason I like it is from a reliability perspective. I really like knowing that my boat always has a properly charged battery, like an AGM, that has no heavy load on it. So when you do a standalone lithium for electronics, you're taking all that load off your cranking battery, and then pretty much your cranking battery runs the motor and the live wells, the bilge pumps, which are not a heavy demand throughout the day. So it's nice having that separation from a reliability perspective. The second reason I like it is lithium stay at constant voltage from 100% of charge to 1% of charge. They don't have a gradual decline like an AGM does. So you don't deal with that battery fatigue as the day goes on. So that's a big reason we like lithium. Now unfortunately, I've seen a lot of, I'm not going to say the way we do it is like the only way to do it, but I've seen a lot of bad information on the internet about how to do standalone lithium. I've seen guys directly pair on PMs, which is how you start a fire. I've seen guys run DeWalt batteries, Milwaukee batteries, all these standalone drill batteries that, number one, are not IP65 waterproof rated. So if you had a problem in your boat and it caught fire, guess what? Your insurance policy is going to find out about it, and they're probably going to drop you because of it. So the way we like to do a standalone lithium is everything retains in the back of the boat. You have a standalone circuit like our harness for just the electronics. And the way we rig it is we actually just launched a new switching kit that's pretty cool called our dedicated lithium switch kit. And it actually has it's a switch that your harness plugs into, and it has an L and an A mode. Mm-hmm. Essentially how that switch works, when it's in L mode, your electronics are running off the lithium. In the event that lithium ever had a problem, you move the switch to A mode, and then your electronics run off your crank and AGM. So you have like double redundancy in the sense that you have a standalone lithium like that.
I like how you look at me like I listened to the entire question.
Go ahead. Can you expand on that a little bit? Talk about how, some of the graphs from 10 years ago compared to someone who's had the graphs from 10 years ago has upgraded to new 2022, 2023 versions of graphs, about how the amp draw is totally different from 10 years ago compared to now, especially with the processors and stuff that are inside these graphs. Why the importance of having bigger batteries, having higher amperage is stuff you're going to get the most out of your graph on your a day on the water?
Yeah. So, I mean, like any technology, obviously everything expands and grows and becomes more sophisticated over time.
Mhm.
And what we have definitely seen that in the electronics world with boats. For example, a HDS Live 12 from Lowrance has a quad core processor. It's got extensive memory storage. It's got a big 12-inch touchscreen. It's got cooling fans. It's got SD ports. That requires a good bit of power draw. And there's actually an equation online that dictates what size wire and how long a wire will support a certain amperage draw. And the problem in today's world is with interest rates as high as they are right now, guys are retrofitting older boats. Nothing wrong with that. We do it all the time in our shop. The problem is that even new boats are this way, but it's really prevalent with old boats.
Right.
Old boats were not built with a 02 TR21 Triton. They had no idea we were going to slap 5 screens on a boat.
Oh, absolutely.
The stock wiring in the boat is small 16 gauge wire. And the analogy I always use is your stock wiring in your boat is like drinking a smoothie through a coffee straw. Our harness, or if you do your own wiring, when you upgrade that wiring, it's like having a normal straw for a smoothie, right? Type deal. So what happens when you have that small diameter wire over an extended period of time with a heavy amperage draw, like a big graph on it? It will drop voltage. So even though your battery is at 12 volts, the graph is only going to show 10 volts because of that amperage draw going across the circuit. So doing upgraded wiring paired with the lithium will ensure those graphs operate right, because a big part of the graphs operating right is what voltage they're at. For example, I'll use Garmin for an example. When they hit 11 volts, they start going into a processor save, or essentially unit power save mode. So they'll reduce power to the processor, they'll reduce power to the screen, and you'll start seeing your picture degrade as the day goes on when you go under that 11 volt period.
Yes.
So if you can maintain it above it, you're going to get those good pictures. And your battery's going to stay on all day.
Right. Okay. A lot of guys in the install game, and we're not going to talk about any particular company or anything like that. What are some of the more common mistakes that you see others making when somebody's not happy with that job and they bring it to your shop?
A big part of it is the wiring and connectors. There is I don't know where it came from, why it's a thing, but a lot of guys are starting to use these screw-on connectors called posi locks.
Mm-hmm.
They should not be used in a marine application at all. They're completely exposed to elements.
They'll rust.
I've got pictures of guys that use posi locks, guys that use home AC wiring lock nuts, guys that just get wire twisted together and wrap E-tape around it. And within 6 months, just because of humidity in a boat, it is caked with corrosion, which will produce amperage draw, which will heat the wire, can relate in power failure, could even ultimately result in a fire. And then a big thing when I say wiring, not only is the connection strong, but how the circuit's built. There's a lot of guys that just slap wire in the boat with no fuse, and that is a major fire hazard in the boat. So the biggest thing we see is connections and how the circuit is built ultimately in the boat, which is why again, there's a lot of harnesses out there. You can wire it yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But nice thing about ours, it's IP65 waterproof rated. It's got a 15-year warranty, and ultimately it's guaranteed to perform because it's built the way it's supposed to. We've got top pros like Brandon Polnick,
I was going to say, you've got pros that use your stuff.
I mean, I think it's over half the Elite Series field runs our product. We rig close to 40 pro boats a year that fish either the Bass Pro Tour or the Elite Series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, big names run our product.
And your wiring harness, if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to run 3 graphs, you build it or have a harness built for that application?
Yeah, so our harness, for the most part, you can go on our website. We actually have a harness builder, and you pretty much answer questions, what boat you have, what graphs you have, what mounts you have, and we build the harness based on that information. We also have dealer programs like with Tackle Warehouse, where we kind of have like a stock harness built that supports a certain amount of graphs. So there's kind of 2 applications. Ultimately, our harness is built based on how many devices you run. So nice thing about that is if you have a smaller platform, say 2 graphs, it's a cheaper harness than a bigger system. So the price point kind of just based on ultimately how many devices you have in the system.
This is a question for me.
Yeah.
Some battery companies have a dedicated electronic battery that runs higher than 12 volts, 16 volts. Does that really make a difference?
Picture wise, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
And why is that?
I've ran one before and compared it side by side with a 12 volt, and there's not a difference at all. If someone tells you a difference, they're selling you. Now, there is the difference is this, and because I'm not going to say there's no benefit. The benefit to higher voltage is at higher voltage, you essentially the units are more efficient on amperage. So let's just say at 12 volts, a graph pulls 3 amps.
Okay.
On 16 volts, it's going to pull 2.5 amps. So there's an efficiency aspect to higher voltage. So if you have the only time we ever use them is the high voltage batteries is if there is some really unique situation where someone's running a lot of graphs and we have a small application where we can put the battery. Because I can run a smaller, say 16 volt battery than I can a 12 volt battery for fitment.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, we really like 12 volt lithiums. I love the X2 power, 125 amp hour. I like 12 volt because it's really easy to charge them. There's plenty of chargers out there that are already marine rated to have in the boat. The problem with a lot of these oddball voltage configurations, there's not charger support for them.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of technology, but I also like simplicity. And if we're going to put a standalone lithium in a customer's boat, I really want to make sure the charging's simple for the customer.
Right.
And these other higher voltage batteries, a lot of times you have to have an external non-waterproof charger that you got to plug into the battery. You got to have the lid open. If it rains, you got to run out and unplug the charger. That ain't the way it should be. So the way we do it is standalone lithium, and it gets its own, normally a Minn Kota 1-bank charger that you just wire into the factory pass-through. So when you plug it in, all your chargers kick on. It's easy peasy.
And so, but again, I want to make sure no definitive upgrade
Picture difference
as far as the picture.
No, none whatsoever.
Because the
As
picture
long as generally speaking, as long as you're above 11 volts, it's the same. Like that's confirmed by engineers at Garmin and Lowrance, and I have personally seen it. As long as you are above 11 volts, you're getting the same picture.
It is what it is at that.
Yeah,
point.
the where things now the reason I say 11 volts, the one thing to be cognitive of is none of these manufacturers accurately display correct voltage on the screen. Like for example, on the front of my boat, I've got a Garmin, a Humminbird, and a Lowrance. My Humminbird will say 12.8 all day. My Garmin will say 13.3, and my Lowrance will say 13.0. But I know they're all on their like exact same length of wire, everything.
Yeah.
They all don't share the same. So what you'll see guys that say, well, my graph was at 11.4 and I saw a poor picture. Well, that means actually that graph could possibly, when you're in the low 11s, you're in the danger zone. So what I normally try to tell everyone, the factual information is technically speaking, as long as the graph is above 11 volts, it operates the same. But what I try to tell people, because of variances with what's displayed on the screen, 12 and up is where you want to be. To get a proper picture, 12 and up is good. That's why we like the 12 volt lithiums. They sit at about 13.1, 13.3, and they're happy all day.
Got a question. Any harnesses set up for a kayak?
Yeah, we do kayak harnesses.
Do you? Because, I mean, the kayak world and the fish, it's growing.
Yep.
And a lot of guys are spending a lot of money setting up these graphs,
100%.
just like a bass boat on a kayak.
Yep.
They end up having $15,000 in a kayak.
Yep.
So you do make a
we rig
harness.
we rig kayaks and we build harnesses for kayaks. What I will say is, if you're looking at getting a kayak harness, just reach out to us. The harness builder on our website is more for like a I'm not going to say an actual boat because a kayak's a boat, but like a bass boat or a center console laid out. You'll notice the questions are kind of laid out on what mounts you're using and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking to get a kayak harness from us, we build them all the time. There's a lot of nuances with kayaks, like what kind of battery you're using, because a lot of the kayak batteries have unique terminals, not like the regular just like stud post a normal battery has. So definitely reach out to us and we can get one built, but we build them all the time for people.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
You have any stress on, like, if you run a live scope like Garmin, do you have any like opinion or stress on having a dedicated battery that runs straight to the black box?
No, I just we like to do a standalone lithium for all your electronics.
Okay.
Again, people will try to say if you do a battery in your rod locker just for the live scope, you're gonna get a better picture. As long as it is rigged right, wired right, and has a nice proper voltage, whether that's from a proper cranking AGM or a standalone lithium, it will perform the same. There's a lot of bad information out there on people doing these rod locker setups. I've personally seen 2 boats that almost burned to the ground from people running batteries in their rod lockers, or those little DeWalt battery adapters and stuff. That kind of stuff should not be going in the boat.
What about like an AGM or a lithium?
Like in the rod locker?
Yeah.
No, I mean, unless you find a real good way to secure it. The problem is a lot of boats on the rod lockers, the bottom of that rod locker is the hole. So I've seen this.
Yeah.
I had a guy brought me a boat and there was 3 deck screws through the bottom of his boat where he mounted a battery tray.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I've yet to run in a boat. Like we get real creative. And again, I'm not trying to say we're the end all be all, but there is a way to get if you have to add an electronics battery, nine times out of 10, most boats you can fit it in the back or at least one of the rear storage boxes. You want anything like a battery you want towards the rear of the boat because that's the least amount of impact. The console forward on a boat gets absolutely beat up. So the more you can get stuff to the rear, the better. That's the softest area of the boat as far as when it's going through waves.
Okay. So let's see. Michael Temples, can you make a harness to include graphs, black box, and network box?
Yeah. So our harness, when you go on our website or you talk to us, we have two forms of terminology on the harness. One is our fuses will be labeled for the nice thing about our harness is each individual fuse is a waterproof fuse that has a label that says what device it's responsible for. So it'll say console 1, console 2, bow 1, bow 2, so on and so forth. And then we have our other terminology, which is modules. So modules are like live scope boxes, 360s, network boxes. So again, on our website, you can build out what you need the harness for. So it could be a harness just for your screens. It could be a harness just for your network system. Be a harness just for all your network box or your black boxes. We can build it to however you want. Ultimately, my recommendation, and I don't try to make this sound salesy, I like all my electronics being on a similar type circuit. The one thing we try to steer away from is like where customers want, just their bow graphs on our harness, but the consoles are on the stock wiring. I don't like things being separate because if there's a problem, it's really hard to diagnose what's going on.
Yeah,
so
it makes sense.
Generally speaking, we like to say if the budget allows, because I get everyone has a different budget.
Right.
The budget allows, whether you're getting a harness from us or you're building your own, I normally recommend your black boxes and your screens are all on a separate circuit from the boat.
Okay, good deal. I don't know who this Facebook user is, but Sonar Pros dealer program is in my email. Who?
Paul Benson.
Paul, he's there. Folks can order a wiring harness from Fish North Georgia. Well, it is. I see the PB now. Well, there you go. Thank you very much. Go down to the next one. You mentioned fire hazard a lot. Some boat manufacturers are very picky about upgrades and additions. Does your wiring and upgrades, if you care to speak on it, stand with and are supported by a warranty or insurance claim should something unfortunate happen?
Yeah, so our harness is backed by a 15-year warranty. We have a very detailed warranty procedure that essentially says, hey, as long as you're using our harness within our applications, we warranty it.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the event that our harness causes a fire in the boat, there's business insurance for a reason. I will say, even though I don't have a degree in engineering, that harness literally, unless someone modifies it, literally cannot cause a fire. When I came out with that design and started using it, I would deliberately get power and ground hot off a battery on that thing in the shop testing it, and I would short it out to produce a short, which in theory, if it wasn't fused right, would cause a fire.
Right.
And there was never an application where a fuse didn't pop or the circuit didn't do what it was supposed to do. So we've been selling harnesses now for 5 years.
Yeah.
And in 5 years, we've not had a single warranty claim.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And if pros are using it,
yeah,
I mean, pros are going to want the best.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's situations where people don't install it properly. They don't follow the directions.
Yeah, because if you just sell the harness,
that
different.
stuff comes up.
Oh, absolutely.
But as far as like an actual failure because of our assembly process or anything like that, we've not had one.
Okay, that's awesome. I got a few more minutes with you.
Oh yeah, we're good. I have no timeline now. We're good.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah, we had dinner with the old lady before we got here, so we're good with that.
The old lady.
The old lady.
Listen, how old are you?
She ain't an old lady. She's 29. I'm 32.
Listen, how long you been married?
Not married.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
dating.
Dating. You done calling her the old lady?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to give you some marriage advice so
Yeah.
that you can let.
she won't be a girl. She won't be a girlfriend for much longer.
Hey,
Oh.
do we have news here? Are we
I
dropping?
can't say nothing if she's listening.
Are we
That's
dropping
all
a
I'll say.
bomb? Okay. Well, we'll just leave it at that. I want to make sure I cover this. NPFL is coming to Lake Lanier.
Yes.
2 weeks.
Yep.
2 weeks. You guys are going out of, is it Laurel?
We're going out of Laurel, and then we're weighing in at
Gwinnett.
I always forget the name of it. The Striper Stadium.
Stripers.
Yeah.
The Gwinnett Strippers.
Yeah. The Strippers.
You're going to the
The
Striper
Striper Stadium. Yeah.
How cool is
Cool
that?
Ray Field.
Cool Ray
Cool
Field.
Ray Field.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Paul about the logistics, but I was here for the Elite Series when the last Elite event was here in 2000.
12.
No, it
No,
was
it ain't
later
been
that.
that.
It was
It's been later
17
than
or 18, if I remember correctly.
Was it?
Yeah,
No,
I,
you're right. No.
Yeah, because I had
my ears are bleeding.
yeah, we had Drew. I had Drew Cook and Drew Benton at our house for that one, but I don't remember what when it was. Anyways, that one they actually weighed in the stadium. Like in the field. So I don't know if we're doing that. That'd be kind of cool, but
I think
I know
it'd be
we're
cool.
there somewhere.
You're there.
Yeah, Paul may know. I had never asked the logistics on it.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right. So predictions on what you think it's going to take over the course of 3 days to win at Lake Lanier end of October.
So, again,
I know there's a lot of variables.
No, the nice thing about the NPFL is when we sign our contract, we cannot receive information.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I signed my contract in December, I can't talk to anyone about Lake Lanier.
Remember, I talked to you guys about that at the beginning of the show.
I've been off limits for almost 3 weeks now, so I haven't been on the lake in 3 weeks. But if I look back to history's past, the way the lake's shaping out, I think there's one big variable that will dictate the weight, and that's if the turnover stays around mid in the middle part of the lake and the bottom part of the lake. If the turnover stays around there and doesn't flush out, or if it starts or stops, whatever. If the turnover is there, we're still going to catch them. The weights will be lower. I think it'll take, with the turnover, will be 16, 17 a day. With the turnover, without the turnover, probably 20, 21 a day to win.
Okay,
ultimately.
that's legitimate. Ryan, can you type in the shop address in the comment section, because somebody was asking where the shop's located?
So,
or you might be asking about you.
Our shop.
Our shop. Yours first.
He's appointment only.
Yeah. So our shop right now, I'll give you a close enough location. We're in a commercial complex behind the Dawsonville outlet malls.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we are appointment only, just because we don't have a giant shop space and we don't have a retail front. So we don't do walk-ins, just insurance reasons. I can't, like, you open our door, you are in the shop.
Yeah,
so,
I get it.
And to ensure that I'm available to actually talk and discuss what we're doing with your boat, we are appointment only. So how we work is, if you want to bring your boat to us to have us do work, we set an appointment. We actually set a date, and most of the time a time for you to drop it off. That makes sure that I'm available to sit there. We'll walk through the whole boat, determine what the plan is of attack to get everything rigged right. And the nice thing about us being appointment only is we don't do the typical, hey, drop your boat off, we're going to sit on it for a month and then start work. When you drop your boat off, for the most part, we start work, and within 3 to 5 business days, everything's buttoned up.
Now, you just brought up something kind of interesting to me, the insurance aspect of it. A lot of your local guys, smaller guys, you see people walking in and out of that.
Yep.
Is that a big no-no? I mean, how does the business insurance work? Like when they're in your shop?
It's a big deal. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
There's a lot of
That's
liability.
I've never thought about.
There's a lot of liability working on people's boats. I mean, I'll be transparent. I pay over $20,000 a year in business insurance for what we have. And that's a chunk. I have over insurance because I want every bit of coverage if something happens. And even the reason we do a lot on our website, we do a lot of e-commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I first launched my website, I lost that on $20,000 from credit card scams. So I have insurance that covers that too. So
I get that.
There's definitely a liability when you have customers just freeloading through your shop. And I'm very strict on it. Some guys might think I'm a little bit of an a-hole. When you come into my shop, I'm like, hey, let us stop working for a second. Like, I'll get with you, and can you come back in like an hour? Like, and I hate to be that way, but like there's a procedure with it. Yeah, 100%. And like the foreseeable future with Sonar Pros, that shop has fit its goal for me to get us in a position we are now. We're actively, it's been not a whole lot of fun with the county, but we're actively acquiring property to build a large shop with a retail front. We'll sell electronics, mounts, everything, one-stop shop for everything in a large working space. So us having a publicly posted location is probably 12 to 18 months out from now.
Don't you love working with the government?
It's horrible.
Yeah. Paul put that you guys are, we are in the parking lot of the stadium.
Parking lot of the stadium. Cool. Yep.
To accommodate the drive-through weigh-in. Yeah. So you got the drive-through weigh-in.
Yeah.
And there's this too.
There's a local flick or treat event for kids on Showdown Saturday for families that want to attend both. Hey, we'll make sure we shout that out.
Yeah.
Any tips on running wires through the boat hull?
Depends on the boat. If you're doing a Ranger or Vexus or one of the new Icons that we just did.
Oh, you had your hands on an Icon
already. A couple
already.
of them now. Yeah.
What do you think about that boat?
No comment.
Here's what I'll say.
Oh.
Here's what I'll say. Transparently, that's the nicest built boat there is. Seriously, like fit and finish, there is not a better built boat, and that's coming from someone who's a Phoenix fanboy. Like, and I ran a Phoenix for over close to 10 years now, and I love every aspect of my Phoenix. But there's definitely fit and finishes things with the Phoenix that I don't love either.
Mm-hmm.
The Icon is the best built boat. There is a lot of new technology in that boat that I'm a little hesitant about.
Back deck.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology. I mean, it's cool. I love cool stuff, but again, like the way we rig a boat and the way my thought process is, I always think if something goes wrong, I mean, they have an on-off switch in the back that has a mechanical motor that you can hit a button on the back of the boat and it will automatically turn that switch for you. Cool. What if that breaks? Like,
did they overthink the boat?
No, I think ultimately the technology in that boat is where everything will be 5 years from now. It's just early. Like the live well chiller thing, that's really cool. My understanding is if that breaks, it's a pretty intensive process to replace it. Like borderline separate top and lower cap from each other. Yeah, and I don't know it for sure. That's what I was told by the consumer who owned the boat. But I guess real quick to answer the question, when it comes to running wire through a boat, get you some really good wire snakes and wire lubricant. That makes a world of a difference getting stuff through the boat.
That I know that from doing heating and air and having their
100%.
Wire lubricant is like all lubricants.
Yeah,
good.
even if you don't if you don't have wire lubricant, Dawn dish soap is good. It's just a little bit more of a pain to clean up than wire lubricant.
Do you like? I'll talk about the Icon real quick.
Yeah. We can go back to that.
Do you like the easy access panel on the driver's side console? How it comes open and then
the front of the console
right there. Yeah.
You talking about where the windshield folds down?
On the windshield.
Is that so that you can see like the are you talking about like the electrical
access?
Okay.
Yeah. When you pull it up and you open it up, and then there's another compartment there, and you pull that compartment out, and it's like bam, everything that you need.
Okay.
I
want to make sure what we're talking about.
Nitro actually did that first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the newer Nitro Z series boats have that, and I love it. It's really easy to rig to an extent that on the front of my Phoenix, behind the windshield, I got Boat Logics to make me a custom access panel, and I made my Phoenix do that, which was nice because if anyone has Phoenixes, they know that the screws like to come out in the shrouds. So when I made that access panel, I changed all my screws to through bolts. So like my entire shroud like literally won't move. And the nice thing is, like, for example, when I was at Wright Patman, I knocked a transducer off my boat. I didn't have to take all my grass off on my Phoenix. I literally just have this access panel that undoes 3 thumb screws and it pulls off and I can get inside my console. So like, I love that idea that Icon came out because when I saw that, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do that in my boat. And we figure we now on most Phoenix installs we actually add that in now.
Add the little access.
Yeah, because then I can change all the screws on the shroud to a through bolt, and that we don't ever have a conversation about screws coming out of the shroud.
Okay. All right, guys. So we're getting late in the show. So if you got one last question, you might want to make sure you get it right there in the comments. And again, Ron, you guys keeping us up with the Braves game. We appreciate it. So let's shout out how people can get in touch with you for the Sonar Pros.
Yeah. So probably the best way is, I know it's a little bit of an archaic process, but if you're looking to get an install, there is an install request form on our website.
Mm-hmm.
Really helps me to have that upfront information before we have a phone call to talk about what's going on.
Is it just Sonar Pros?
It's sonarproselectronics.com.
Okay.
And then our phone number, our direct phone number is 770-530-4505. And our general email that you can reach out to us at is info@sonarproselectronics.com. But generally speaking, our number, our email, or any of our socials, Facebook and Instagram, will respond pretty quickly to you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's see. Okay, so Ryan put it right there. Guy said, great show. Congratulations on your success. First of all, we want to wish you success with the tournament.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
I want you to get that check.
Yeah.
But it is really cool. I will say this. We've had a lot of great guys on this show, and I don't think I've had anyone come in with as much straightforward information as you did.
Definitely.
It's not hard to see a guy that doesn't really know what he's talking about and one that does. And so definitely I think everybody can agree tonight. You had the questions, you had the answers, boom, 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 boom. So that was really impressive. Guys, hey, listen, we're going to call it a night. Make sure, again, Toys for Tots, November 4th. Currently out of Victoria on Lake Allatoona. I believe it's an $80 registration fee and a toy per angler. So 2 toys per boats. We've got a box up here in the shop. If you're in the area, you got time, go by Walmart, spend $5, $10, $15, $20, $100. I don't care what you do. Grab a few toys. They're going to support Pickens County, which our shop is in Pickens County. So I think they said, 3,500 kids, Ryan? Is that about right?
Yeah.
For Christmas. And listen, it'll do your heart some good to get out and help. Again,
And you'll be filming next week.
I'll be filming next week.
Next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I should be here.
I might be here some.
You
I'll
might
be in
here
Helen
too, but I'll definitely be
filming
here next Wednesday,
Oktoberfest,
Thursday,
doing
Friday.
a fly
so-
fishing. So
fun.
it's going to
Yeah.
be fun. Again, guys, hey, listen, Trent, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
For I said, hey, will you come? And you were like, yeah, boom. And so I love that. And in fact, listen, Sonar Pros. Yes, he's going to be a sponsor of our show. But actually, I don't know if he remembers it. A couple years ago, you gave us a couple harnesses for our
Electric tournament. Yep.
and all that. And I've held one in my hand. I know they're well built. He might have to do my boat soon because I'm going to get some new graphs and everything. So I'm going to lean on his expertise. I think, guys, there was a lot to take in tonight. Go back and watch this again. There's a lot to learn, a lot of good tidbits of information that Trent threw out there that might make you want to think how your boat's wired up and how, batteries. We talked batteries tonight and what he thinks is the best application for that. So again, great information tonight. You guys take advantage of somebody who knows what they're talking about's knowledge. Don't trust guy just because a guy posts on Facebook that he can do this stuff doesn't make him an expert. Get somebody that knows it. And so right now we're going to recommend Sonar Pros to you just because, listen, you can tell in the conversation tonight, guy knows what he's talking about. So again, good luck with the NPFL.
Appreciate it.
Tell all them guys, Brad, and let's get you and your buddies on
We
here.
can do it.
We'll do that.
Yeah. It would either be probably what's our last day?
Hey,
of
when's your
practice?
off day? When's your off day?
Wednesday. So Tuesday night would be good if possible because Wednesday night
Let's see
we're
if we
rigging
can do a
normally.
little special. Ryan, you good for that?
Yeah.
That Tuesday
Yeah, I can
night.
get Pat and Mike up here.
We'll get all
Yeah,
you
let's do
guys.
it.
We'll get all you
Yeah,
guys
Pat and
over
Mike
here.
would be good. Patrick's a hoot, especially because he catches them in every
And
tournament.
since y'all got the day off, we can stay a little
Yeah,
later. We'll have a little
exactly.
more fun like that.
Yeah.
Guys, hey, we appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And next week, we're going to have another great live well. Don't know what it's about yet. We'll figure it out. Go Braves. And, hey, if you're on the lake this weekend, be safe, be responsible, and take care of our resources. We'll see you on the next one.